Chapter 739. Oh my God! There were more and more spectators. The battle had already progressed to this stage, and it was beyond everyone's expectations. After all, Earth had already been breached, and there was an endless stream of experts from the ancestral hall. Even if Xiao Ho stood in the domain of half-step almighties, he could not play a role in reversing the battle situation. People felt that it was only a matter of time before Earth was brutally suppressed. But now, the great battle in outer space had shaken their hearts. The images reflected in their eyes caused their hearts to tremble. What did they see? A fighting god-fiend had awakened, dominating the starry sky, majestic and imposing. When he waved the immortal iron staff, it was like a supreme weapon that shook the universe, shattering a corner of the starry sky. This was a super-strong seal formed by more than 10 celestial gods, but now it could not trap this fighting god-fiend who was about to go berserk. Su Yan's power had awakened, piercing through the super-strong seal, and a terrifying divine light emerged. Dong! This immortal iron staff was filled with a power that could crush all living things. When Su Yan waved it, more than 10 celestial gods were sent flying, and several of them even exploded and died. Who were they? They were celestial gods, and every celestial god had terrifying prestige and power in the peak star regions. Even in the most powerful ancient star, celestial gods were top experts who dominated an area. The heavenly deities were all the pillars of the peak races, but now more than 10 of them were sent flying, and several of them even exploded. Just how savage was this scene? They seemed to have seen a divine king of fighting erupting, looking down on everything. What kind of weapon is that? How can it be so abnormal? Could it be a supreme treasure? Many people looked at the immortal iron rod that Su Yan was holding tightly. Immortal mist rose from it, and it was filled with a vast divine might. The aura it emitted caused people to be unable to breathe. This murderous weapon had truly activated its unrivaled power. Just now, after fusing with more than 10 fragments, a large part of the immortal iron staff had recovered. Although it was still far from being complete, the current immortal iron staff was already terrifying enough. Especially when its aura merged with Su Yan's, it caused his battle strength to soar. It was as if the murderous weapon that had once crushed the earth was awakening. Boundless light shone, and battle power surged. Su Yan had truly comprehended the life of the immortal iron rod, its strength, this indestructible murderous weapon. Even if it was shattered, it could still reform itself. It was as if the immortal iron staff had become one with Su Yan. It was an indispensable part of his life. If a god blocked him, he would kill a god. If a Buddha stood in his way, he would destroy a Buddha. Baokai. Su Yan's blood-dyed hair was disheveled. The immortal iron rod in his hand was trembling. His burning eyes looked at the gradually blurring yin-yang road, causing Su Yan's anger to continue burning. He roared, "All of you deserve to die!" Boom! The immortal iron staff he gripped tightly revived again, erupting with Su Yan's fury, full of iron-bloodedness and domineeringness, full of exceptional boldness that could crush the universe. Leave quickly! The heavenly deities who were still alive were scared out of their wit. More than 10 of them working together couldn't trap Su Yan, and several of them were even killed by him. Moreover, when these heavenly deities encountered the power of the immortal iron rod, they all felt great fear of having their body and soul destroyed. Without a doubt, this immortal iron rod couldn't be touched. Once touched, the heavenly deity's body would directly collapse. This supreme treasure was too powerful. They speculated that it might very well be a broken supreme treasure. Kill! Su Yan roared. His tyrannical bearing was suffused with raging flames. He used the earth-shrinking technique and crossed the starry sky to chase after these fleeing heavenly deities. All of you die for me! Su Yan's aura was too ferocious, releasing the anger in his heart. He descended from the sky, holding the immortal iron rod with both hands. he smashed through the starry sky, collapsing celestial bodies one after another. It was like a supreme treasure that could destroy the solar system. No. Facing the incoming immortal iron rod, the heavenly deities were all terrified. Goosebumps rose all over his body. He tried to use his own secret treasure to block, but he discovered that the heavenly deity weapon was directly crushed into pieces. Surging ferocious energy assaulted his face. Just the aura emitted by Su Yen was already enough to make this Kuan family's heavenly deity despair. He let out a terrified scream. This rod smashed onto his head, causing his sturdy heavenly deity body to break apart. Su Yen was bathed in the blood of heavenly deities. His eyes overflowed with ferocious energy. He began a massacre here, wanting to slaughter all the heavenly deities. Slaughtering deities. He is slaughtering heavenly deities. The spectators were all scared. These were heavenly deities, but they couldn't block the power of the immortal iron rod. It was like pulling weeds. One after another, the heavenly deities exploded and died. The fall of each heavenly deity led to the collapse of the starry sky, the scene of blood flowing like a waterfall. The solar system was dyed red with blood. This was a ghastly scene. One after another, the heavenly deities were sent flying like dead dogs. Another mournful scream exploded. What made everyone flabbergasted was that Yin Yuan Kuei still couldn't escape in the end. At first, he was seriously injured, so Yin Yuan Kuei wanted to escape. When he was about to escape to the edge of the Milky Way galaxy, he was stomped into a bloody mist by Xiahou, who rushed back. Yin Yuanshi and Yin Yuan Kuei were both dead. The two great divine king of the dark underworld race, one was torn apart by Su Yen, and the other was stomped to death by Xiahou. This really made people panic. The two great divine king had died miserably. How could the dark underworld race leave this matter at that? I really don't know how this battle will end. The spectators continued to increase. People expected that in a few days, the major peak races of the prosperous cultivation world would rush over after hearing the news. At that time, the Milky Way galaxy would become even more lively. Rumble! At this time, a majestic aura filled the air and appeared majestically in the Milky Way galaxy. It was full of a terrifying sense of oppression. It was as if a giant beast had broken free from its shackles, causing all living beings in the universe to tremble in fear. The Supreme Expert has awakened. The whole place was in an uproar. The reversal of the situation had appeared once again. Perhaps there was no need for more experts from the Ancestral Hall to rush over. A portion of the Supreme Expert's power was enough to reverse the entire battle. Xiao's eyes were red as he rapidly approached Su Yen. But what made people panic was that the Ancestral Hall ancestor, who was fighting back on Earth, suddenly let out a loud roar. Billions of stars wailed and the entire Milky Way galaxy trembled. Rumble! Those were two palms, so large that they were comparable to the sea of the universe. This was the power of the Ancestral Hall ancestor. He was still fighting back against the power of Earth, but his two arms broke free. His palms were boundlessly large, and with a light pat, the starry sky collapsed. Yuan and the others turned pale. The Supreme Expert's two palms stretched out. One palm covered Xiahou while the other suppressed Su Yen. The power of a supreme being was magnificent. Just a single palm was filled with the power of a star system. The moment the palm rushed out, it was visible to the naked eye. Along the way, many large stars in the universe exploded one after another. Many people were stunned. They really felt that Su Yen was completely finished. In this kind of battle, no one could help Su Yen. After all, Xiahou was suppressed. Even if a half-step Supreme Expert was powerful and could overturn the palm of a Supreme Expert for a short time, the Supreme Expert could use this time to suppress Su Yen. Ah! Xiahou let out a long roar. His tall and majestic body instantly crashed into the Supreme Expert's palm. At the same time, he roared, old thing, don't make a mistake. If you kill one of my clansmen, 100,000 people from the ancestral hall will be buried with him." This was an unusually cruel voice that echoed in the Milky Way. It was accompanied by bloody pictures that spread out in the sky, stained with blood. It was a scene of purgatory in the human world that appeared in the eyes of the world. In fact, as early as a few days before this battle, a storm of blood had swept through the universe, alarming all the major tribes. Even the peak tribes were moved. At the same time, one thing was confirmed. The incident in the second ancestral land of the burial realm was true. Even in the Chaos Ruins, a fierce battle had broken out. It could be said that in just a few days, the disaster had caused a sensation among the upper echelons of the major tribes. After all, a bloody battle had broken out in the Chaos Ruins. The Ancestral Hall's precious resource lands had been overturned. That was the Ancestral Hall's most precious resource mystic realm, but it had been massacred. Xiahou and the rest had joined forces to attack the Ancestral Hall's resource lands, causing the Ancestral Hall's foundation in the Chaos Ruins to suffer heavy losses. Even a peak dojo had been overturned. In this universe era, this was the most tragic attack the Ancestral Hall had ever suffered. It originated from the boundless fury of the Burial Realm clan. Xiahou and the rest had massacred the mining area. They had killed until the heavens and the earth had cracked. Ghosts had cried and gods had howled. Large groups of Ancestral Hall experts had been suppressed and taken away. The Ancestral Hall's ancestral land couldn't rescue the experts that had gone there because they were worried that a terrifying giant would target their ancestral land. What had happened in those few days had shaken the prosperous cultivation world. The peak tribes were quite shocked. They hadn't expected the Burial Realm clan to have another half-step supreme expert. Anyone could see the determination of the Burial Realm clan. They had killed until the myriad tribes were terrified. No one had expected the Burial Realm clan, which had been hiding in the major cultivation starfields, to retaliate so fiercely. "You're courting death. Burial Realm clan, you should really be exterminated." Zhu Yangbo was about to go mad with anger. Peak dojos had been overturned and dozens of resource mystic realms in the Chaos Ruins had been destroyed. The losses were too heavy. Zhu Yangbo was so angry that blood flowed out from the corners of his eyes. This was simply cutting off their flesh. They had even dared to massacre the Chaos Ruins resource lands. This was simply too audacious. One had to say that it was a form of intimidation. Even Su Delong and the rest had detained and taken away 100,000 Ancestral Hall soldiers and powerful disciples. This was a complete indiscriminate destruction. If Earth was defeated, they would be buried along with it. In short, once such a collision occurred, the Ancestral Hall would suffer a great loss. Boom! But what made everyone tremble was that the Ancestral Hall's ancient ancestor continued to wave his palm in his fury. He rushed towards Su Yan, who was crossing the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, and Su Yan. Chapter 740. If a half-step Almighty was determined to deal with the Ancestral Hall, to the point of not doing anything in the future and only keeping an eye on them, this matter would indeed cause a group of people to panic. Even if it was a divine king doing this, it was enough to cause people to tremble. After all, experts couldn't protect their clansmen forever. There had been such examples in the past. There was no lack of ruthless people in the universe waiting for hundreds or thousands of years just to cripple their clansmen with great potential. No matter how strong a defense was, there would always be moments of carelessness. If this continued, a group of people would inevitably decline, especially when a half-step Almighty had spoken such ruthless words. This caused Zhu Yangbo to feel a chill in his heart. If Xiahou really went crazy, the Ancestral Hall would suffer great losses. However, the Ancestral Hall ancestor had no intention of stopping. He didn't care about the lives of 100,000 clansmen and wanted to suppress Su Yan and take him away. Rumble! Since Earth had lost the protection of the laws and order, the vast territories trembled in an instant, followed by a great destruction. This was the palm of an Almighty passing through and rushing towards Earth. The energy fluctuations released by the light had already caused a vast region to collapse. Smoke and dust filled the sky as earth and rocks rolled. Who could withstand this kind of power? Under the fury of an Almighty, a ferocious aura filled the air and caused all living beings to panic. Moreover, the entire Huaxia alliance was shaking. They even felt that the Huaxia alliance would completely vanish under the palm of the ancestral hall ancestor. The consequences of an Almighty attacking without caring about the consequences were extremely severe. Millions of lives would be plunged into misery and suffering. Fortunately, the Almighty was targeting Su Yan. Otherwise, the Huaxia alliance would suffer great losses and the 10 major bases would collapse one after another. War God Su Yan. Countless people roared and shouted. They couldn't bear this scene. The vast regions were collapsing and the entire world was heading towards destruction. Moreover, the Almighty's strength was infinitely close to Su Yan's. If Su Yan hadn't grasped the immortal iron staff and wore the divine king's armor, he would have been suppressed along the way. Moreover, the divine king's armor had begun to crack. In the face of this Almighty's aura that caused his body to explode, Su Yan let out a furious roar. The great Tao immortal pearl emitted light and evaporated immortal fog, resisting the Almighty's pressure. He then rushed towards Emperor Qin's mausoleum. This place was currently the strongest defense on Earth. Even Su Yan wanted to see how strong the energy source would be when all 49 dragon pillars were fully awakened. Here, Zhu Yangba's face was gloomy. He knew very well where Su Yan was heading. Back then, their ancestral hall had buried a group of soldiers here. Even now, their fate was still a mystery. However, now that Su Yan had come here to hide from the calamity, Zhu Yangba sneered. What kind of dangerous place was there in this world? Could it block a mighty figure? With. Zhu Yangba's expression was ferocious. The ancestral hall had suffered great losses in this battle. However, he felt that everything was worth it. As long as he could destroy the Burial Realms race, any price was worth it. Once this force was destroyed, the ancestral hall would be unstoppable in the universe. There would be no more powerful enemies. Just as the Almighty's palm touched this area, it was like hitting a heavenly drum. A loud sound reverberated, piercing through the sky. The sound was deafening and spread throughout the entire starry sky. Open for me. Su Yan's low roar could be heard. He had activated the 49 giant pillars. This was a dream-level killing array that had stood here for countless years. Now, they were all starting to awaken. There was a short burst of light. It was as if 49 ancient gods were awakening. Divine power surged out from their slumber. These 49 giant pillars erupted in an instant. The light emitted by the pillars illuminated the entire Milky Way. The world seemed to have returned to ancient times and entered the God-fiend time-space. It was a killing intent that swept through the universe. It was bone-chilling. Super Killing Array, activate. The powerhouses around the Milky Way felt their hair stand on end. This was the sign of a Super Killing Array being activated. Just the burning energy alone was enough to cover the entire Milky Way. Giant pillars spewed out a monstrous light that pierced the heavens. In front of these pillars, the sun, moon, and stars seemed insignificant. It was unknown how many tens of thousands of feet tall it was. It seemed as if it could pierce through the entire Milky Way. These were 49 giant pillars. They gathered the power of the earth and drew upon the power of the starry sky. The entire world was dyed a blood red. Boom! The vast starry sky trembled incomparably violently. It was hard to imagine how this killing array was arranged. Just the energy fluctuations alone were terrifying enough to make one gasp for breath. Following that, 49 beams of light that resembled 49 ancient gods burst out, shattering the heavens. Moreover, their auras merged into one. It was as if the purgatory of gods and devils had been born, outlining an extremely grand universe prison. An unparalleled killing intent spread out, causing the sea of stars to tremble. Even a heavenly god would find it difficult to withstand the aura released. Inconceivable. What kind of killing array is that? It actually managed to trap one of the Almighty's hands. The spectators found it hard to believe. The Almighty's hand was indeed trapped in the killing array. These 49 giant pillars each spouted out a power that locked the Almighty's hand. But how could the Almighty be so easily restrained? Even a single hand contained boundless combat strength. The entire hand released a divine light of order. It was abnormally terrifying and was enough to destroy the heavens and earth. Boom! The Almighty's hand waved and slapped towards the 49 giant pillars. The energy fluctuations were too vast. It tore through the sky and revealed a surging blood-red light. People saw that the Almighty's hand was becoming more and more terrifying. It was like the hand of the heavens and was about to shake off the 49 giant pillars. However, these 49 giant pillars were not ordinary objects in the end. They were attacked by the Almighty's power until they burned fiercely. Each giant pillar released a prehistoric aura. It was as if they were forged from the bones of prehistoric beasts. Roar! Within the giant pillar world, billions of giant beast phantoms appeared. It was as if they were going to explode the heavens. It was especially terrifying. If it wasn't for the fact that the layout wasn't enough, then this killing array would be even more unimaginable. But it was enough to defy the heavens. It released the rumbling of tsunamis and the roars of 10,000 beasts. Even the Almighty's aura became dim. Chop! Su Yen emerged from the violent energy fluctuations. He gathered the strength of the 49 giant pillars and evolved a great spatial slash that could split apart gods and devils. It contained the strength of billions of giant beasts as it ruthlessly chopped down on the Almighty's hand. Gotcha! Under everyone's trembling eyes, this terrifying hand was forcibly cut off. The giant hand violently trembled and released all kinds of order lights. Every beam of blood light could hack off a powerhouse's head. This was only the blood that splashed out. The giant hand was like a thick mountain range that fell from the sky. It smashed into the ground and caused a great earthquake. Even though the hand was chopped off, it still contained destructive fluctuations that made one tremble with fear. Ah! An indignant roar appeared, causing one's soul to tremble. This was the fury of a powerful being. One of his arms had been chopped off. What kind of humiliation was this? A powerful being's arm had been chopped off. Moreover, it was Su Yen who activated the space within the killing array. This made the spectators gasp in disbelief. It was to the extent that what made one's blood run cold was that the Almighty Being's mournful roar appeared once again. It emitted a roar that could devour all life. Many people went weak on the ground and felt as if they were suffocating to death. Their souls were about to shatter. Heavens! Many heavenly deities cried out in alarm. They saw Xiaoho's tyrannical aura as he brandished the bone club and smashed the Almighty Being's hand to the point where it began to tremble and crack. Even when the killing array chopped off his arm, the Almighty Being's aura began to decline. Xiaoho seized this opportunity to emit a world-shocking power. He directly grabbed the Almighty Being's hand and tore it apart. The blood gushed out like a great river, flooding the sea of stars and piercing through the stars. The bloody scene was suffused with an unparalleled, ominous glint. It shook the Divine King so much that his legs went soft. This world is too crazy. Although the Almighty Being couldn't display his peak strength when fighting against the ancient life star, his two arms were no small matter. But now, both of them have been chopped off. The spectators felt a chill in their hearts. Many people were retreating. This was because all kinds of horrifying airflows emerged from the depths of the Milky Way. A giant was spitting out an immeasurable amount of killing intent. He wanted to dye the heavens red and slaughter billions of creatures. Ha 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 ha. Xiahou looked up to the sky and roared. His messy hair danced in the wind. His majestic body was like a heaven-devouring demon lord bathed in the almighty being's blood. Moreover, he used cruel means to refine the essence of the almighty being's hand and swallow it all. How domineering and ferocious was this! It made the entire Huaxia alliance cry out. This was their family's ancestor, an expert belonging to the burial realm. He was a half-step, almighty being of the generation Xiahou. Zhu Yangbua and the others were scared away. The almighty being had lost 2 of his arms. He couldn't even control the power of the earth. Even the god-tying rope flew out and left the Milky Way. There was no doubt that the god-tying rope would fly back to the dark nether race when no one was controlling it after the death of Yin Yuanshi and Yin Yuankue. Xiahou stared at the god-tying rope. He wanted to pull it over, but then he shook his head. This supreme treasure couldn't be suppressed by force. Even if it was suppressed, it would be difficult for him to use it. After all, the god-tying rope contained the will of the previous experts of the dark nether race. It couldn't be easily peeked at. Unless several almighties joined hands, there was no hope of getting the god-tying rope. Well done. Xiahou's rough face was full of smiles. If Su Yan hadn't chopped off the Almighty's arms with the help of the 49 giant pillars, he wouldn't have been able to injure him so easily. An Almighty who had lost 2 arms would certainly have a great impact on his foundation. Did we win? That terrifying expert has lost 2 arms. He left and his aura is fading rapidly. The Almighty had retreated and wouldn't stay here for a moment longer. He was worried that Su Yan would use the 49 giant pillars to trap him. Even if he didn't die, his vitality would be greatly damaged. However, to control the 49 giant pillars was extremely difficult. Su Yan couldn't do it at all. He could only lure the Almighty here. We won, Su Yan staggered. His body was covered in wounds and he panted heavily. He didn't think that they had really won. After a series of bloody battles, Su Yan had also exhausted his foundation. He clenched his fists and stabbed the immortal iron staff into the ground. Su Yan's eyes emitted a terrifying light as he let out a low roar. Yuan was also in great pain. Back then, the 3 of them had gone on a long journey to the universe. They had gone through thick and thin together. But now, Baokai had been captured. Moreover, it wasn't over yet. Xiahou could already feel that the general trend of the universe was surging towards the Milky Way. That kind of aura was suffocating. This was the fury of the 2 races in the universe that was about to charge towards Earth. If it was a war, then the war hadn't arrived yet. Right now, there were already shocking waves in the universe. The Ancestral Hall had suffered heavy losses. The top-notch dojos were overturned. Dozens of resource mystic realms in the Chaos Ruins were bathed in blood. The heads of 100,000 clansmen danced in the air and dyed the vast starry sky red. An unparalleled calamity was brewing. It was as if the horn of war had been blown. Bloody light bloomed and the world turned dark red. The color of blood enveloped the entire universe. Strands of suffocating waves were awakening from their slumber. Especially in the direction of the Chaos Ruins. A terrifying expert had awakened and was about to charge into the universe. Chapter 741. The Chaos Ruins were a chaotic dance of gods and demons. The vast Chaos Zone was located at the edge of the universe. It was unknown how many tens of thousands of miles long. It was boundless, as if it surrounded the entire universe. And the universe was located at the center of the Chaos Ruins. Some people said that the Chaos Ruins were even vaster than the entire universe. It was impossible to estimate its size, and it was filled with mysteries and legends. The Primal Chaos Ruins were filled with Primal Chaos Palea energy, and it was difficult to see what was going on inside. Furthermore, there was a suffocating aura about them. If the Primal Chaos Ruins were fully opened, then the pressure would dissipate. Once this day arrived, it would represent the beginning of the struggle for supremacy in the Chaos Ruins. At that time, the experts of various races would appear and compete for the fortunes of the various great mystic realms. But now, in the depths of the chaos ruins, a terrifying aura was emitted. A terrifying existence was awakening from its slumber. The thick chaos was boiling, and only the heavens knew how many tens of thousands of miles it affected. In the star fields closer to the chaos ruins, many people trembled, and their legs went soft. They really felt as if a giant dragon had risen from the chaos and was looking down on the common people. Could it be that the overlords of the chaos ruins also want to participate? The universe continued to seethe. The big shots of different races were traveling to different places to gather information. Until now, the Ancestral Hall and the Dark Nether race had sent out a large number of experts, especially the Dark Nether race, who had been guarding the Dark Nether race. The aura of the Dark Nether race that could swallow a star area had disappeared. This meant that their race's almighty expert had gone to the battlefield. News of En Yuanshur and En Yuankue's deaths had not spread. Now, the various races in the universe thought that these two peak powers had joined forces once more to overturn the ancestral land of the Burial Realm race. But now, it seemed that the situation was serious. The Ancestral Hall's ancient ancestor had gone, and now the Dark Nether race's almighty expert had also left. What made countless life forms panic was that terrifying existences were awakening in the Chaos Ruins. The Chaos Ruins are also participating. Which side are they on? No matter who they are on, it is impossible for the Burial Realm race to receive any reinforcements. I really don't know how this matter will end. Many experts were puzzled. Why had the Chaos Ruins been alarmed? Among them, there were some terrifying powers that rarely sent experts into the universe, unless it was the moment when the Chaos Ruins were about to open. But now, it was obvious that the time had not yet arrived, but they were making a move. Many people were watching from afar, gazing at the ancient primal chaos. This was the edge of the cosmos. The primal chaos ruins had been there for countless years. Only a great character could emit a terrifying aura and pass through the primal chaos ruins in search of fortune. Look! Many old antiques turned pale. Even the experts from the various peak forces who had come to watch had their expressions changed. The first thing that entered his eyes was an extremely divine golden path. It seemed as if it stretched out from the end of the chaos, and it passed through the ancient chaos. Only the heavens knew exactly how many regions it passed through before it arrived at the edge of the chaos. The universe bridge has appeared. Could it be old antiques turned pale, and the divine king was terrified once more? The universe bridge was a very special secret treasure. Rumor had it that, when unleashed to the extreme, it could cross 1,000 star domains and form a golden universe bridge. Just by thinking about it, one would know how crazy the cosmic bridge was. The value of this item surpassed that of a powerful being's holy weapon. It was definitely ranked just below the supreme treasures. What kind of treasure is the universe bridge? Why do all the heavenly deities look like they've eaten aphrodisiacs? Many of the younger generation had gathered here, and there were even some great warriors from big and small powers. They were surprised as they looked around. Those were the top great warriors of the universe or the old antiques of the ancient families. These people were all solemn as they tidied up their clothes and became full of energy. They seemed to be on a pilgrimage and had encountered an extremely sacred event. They stood respectfully around the universe bridge. This change stunned many experts. What kind of existence had arrived? Why were they acting like this? Were they welcoming a powerful being? But in the end, what made everyone pale was that an old deity king had come and was also standing at the other end of the cosmic bridge, waiting. This was a little shocking. Not many experts knew about the universe bridge, but those who knew about it knew very well what it represented. Not to mention the power behind the universe bridge, the value of the universe bridge alone sometimes surpassed that of a supreme treasure. This supreme treasure could sometimes pass through the incomplete cosmos and search for supreme fortune. This item had been speculated in myths and legends throughout the various eras of the universe. Now that the universe bridge had appeared, it was definitely the arrival of the terrifying existence behind it. Boom! The golden universe bridge continued to shine brilliantly. Finally, it erupted with billions of rays of light and pierced through the chaos. It was like a bridge leading to the immortal domain, extremely sacred and overflowing with vast space-time fluctuations. Footsteps could be heard on the golden avenue. Standing on the bridge, even a mortal could cross a vast territory in a short period of time. "I see a powerful being walking on the bridge," many people exclaimed. They could vaguely see a golden-robed old man walking on the universe bridge with a golden feather fan in his hand. He looked like a transcendent being, but he possessed great divine might, as if an immemorial god was walking over. His divine might was vast, and the aura he emitted made all living things tremble. Before he even reached his destination, this part of the cosmos had lost its luster under his might. Suddenly there was silence. The golden-robed old man had brought out the universe bridge from an unknown place, but he had already walked out of the chaos ruins and arrived outside the cosmos. The next moment everyone around was shocked, because behind the golden-robed old man was a group of people, both men and women. At first they seemed very calm, but when they left the chaos ruins, each of them seemed to have been endowed with monstrous divine power. Their battle bodies were ignited in unison. "Oh my God!" Some young geniuses were shocked, as if they had seen a group of kings of the younger generation awaken from their slumber. Each of them had an aura that could swallow rivers and mountains and dominate the heavens. They were definitely a group of dragons and phoenixes among the younger generation. After all, the chaos ruins were extremely powerful, and their strength was suppressed. Only in the secret realm could they be unharmed. Saintess Z Wei. Some people were surprised because they saw a familiar woman in the crowd. After all, her appearance was too outstanding and would attract attention wherever she went. She was like a pearl blooming here. Yun was also here. It was surprising that she had walked out of the chaos ruins. If Su Yen was here, he would definitely be extremely surprised. The eccentric fairy Zi Xiao was also in the crowd, standing together with Yun. They were a pair of stunning beauties who attracted everyone's attention. "So it's Vice-Dean Jin Yu." A group of experts waiting at the universe bridge spoke excitedly. They were especially aware of this person's influence. Behind them was the Tao Temple. If it was the strongest force in the universe, including the chaos ruins, no one would dare to draw a conclusion. But if it was the most mysterious and prestigious force in the universe, it would definitely be the Tao Temple. But this force would only appear when the chaos ruins opened. Did anyone come out before? Vice Headmaster Jin Yu surveyed the surroundings. His divine eyes were like lightning, and his words were like thunder. He appeared extremely terrifying, able to shake the primal chaos with every move he made. The aura he exhaled from his pores was unbearable. The people here were all stunned and said that they didn't. Jin Yu was suspicious. Just a while ago, he had sensed an abnormally terrifying fluctuation in the chaos ruins. However, it had quickly calmed down. He suspected that some old monsters had also come out of the chaos ruins. Vice-Dean Jin Yu didn't investigate in detail and left with his people. He still had important matters to attend to. The storm is coming. It's too big. Some people could already see the world-shocking undercurrents rising and falling, surging endlessly towards the Milky Way galaxy. Although 99% of the people didn't know the exact location of this place, the torrent originating from the cosmos was boundless and almost unchangeable. It was beginning to converge toward the Milky Way and was about to turn into a monstrous wave. Earth. The ancestral teachings of the burial realm race stated that their experts were not allowed to enter the back progenitor. However, since the seal on Earth had been lifted, the back progenitor and others could come. Xiaoho already felt unprecedented pressure. He stood in the starry sky and carefully sensed the power of the Milky Way. Grandpa Xiahou, how can we survive this calamity? Su Yan asked in a hoarse voice. He was in low spirit. Baokai had been captured just like that, but he couldn't do anything about it. This kind of powerlessness was even more unbearable than the powerlessness he felt on the immortal star. At present, a large number of his race members had left Earth. They had been transported away by Xiahou using a secret technique. We can't hide. Xiahou's figure was tall and majestic. He looked beyond the Milky Way and said coldly, "We can't hide. We can only fight to the death. I can observe the situation of the Milky Way. I can control it and block the Almighty, but if several come, then it will be truly troublesome." Xiahou knew that with the Burial Realm race's current foundation, they couldn't stop them, even if the old leader returned. The premise was that they were determined to deal with the Burial Realm race regardless of the consequences. That would be a true genocide, but Xiahou felt that the two races didn't have the courage. How good would it have been if this place had awakened 100 years earlier? Xiahou sighed in his heart. The Milky Way was terrifying. It could be used as the origin of their race, and they wouldn't be as timid as before. But how could time turn back? Their losses 100 years ago were still too great. After all, they had 2 supreme treasures, 2 almighty, and more than 10 divine king. Too many of their old brothers had died. Now, there were still many scattered teams that hadn't been reunited. "Child, you should go." Xiahou patted Su Yan's shoulder and said in a deep voice, "Leave this place and search for your own martial path. If we are defeated, don't look back. Search for your own path of invincibility. If you can't do it, don't ever look back." Hearing this, Su Yan clenched his fist. He shook his head and said, "The race calamity. As the #1 expert of the Huaxia Alliance, how can I abandon my race and leave at this time?" "Grandpa Xiahou, don't say any more. No matter the outcome today, I will advance or retreat with my race." "Good, ha-ha!" Xiahou laughed. "We won't necessarily lose. I don't think they have the courage. I just regret that I didn't act in time to kill the Kuan family's half-almighty." Su Yan's eyes fell on a beautiful and noble woman standing quietly not far away. Bamboo Moon also looked at Su Yan. Her bright eyes rippled with a smile, but there was also a trace of beauty. "Bamboo Moon, you should leave first." Su Yan walked up and said in a low voice, "I don't know what will happen next. This is a disaster for the Burial Realm. I shouldn't implicate you. Hokuto helped me a lot in the past. Now, no matter what, I can't let you be in danger." Brothers, Emperor's Way of the World has published a physical book. Find an opportunity to organize an event and send some physical books to everyone as a souvenir. Chapter 742. Zhu Yu was a peerless beauty. Her silver robe made her look like a bright moon, as if she was in a dream. Her snow-white skin rippled with the moonlight. Her jet-black hair hung down to her waist. Her beautiful eyes also bloomed with starlight. They were very bright and moving. When she smiled gently, her eyes were like crescent moons, moving people's hearts. She was beautiful and noble. She was already in the divine realm at such a young age. Bamboo Moon's cultivation in the past few years had also allowed her to improve rapidly. She had already begun to accumulate foundation in her realm, and was pushing towards the Divine King's realm. Bamboo Moon looked at Su Yan and smiled gently. "You don't have to worry about me." "But," Su Yan frowned. He really didn't want Bamboo Moon to be in danger. After all, what they were going to face next was very tricky. Even Xiahou wasn't confident. After all, they were going to face many powerful people attacking the Milky Way. "Don't say any more." Bamboo Moon clenched her slender hands and said with a smile, "Speaking of which, there are many students in the Huaxia Alliance that I taught. Moreover, when I was severely injured back then, I escaped to Earth and formed a relationship with the Huaxia Alliance. There is an inseparable relationship between us." Su Yan took a deep breath. He looked at the beautiful and holy woman in front of him and couldn't help but ask, I have always wanted to know what kind of disaster you encountered back then, and why are you a disciple of the Big Dipper star region? This was a mystery. Many people also wanted to know the secret behind it. After all, Bamboo Moon was a descendant of the Sky Bamboo. Her identity and origin were too great. To put it bluntly, Bamboo Moon was one of the most important people in the universe. However, this identity was that of a disciple of Hokuto. Hokuto was very weak back then, and this puzzled many people. I will tell you when the disaster is over. Bamboo Moon smiled. Her body was filled with moonlight and starlight, and there was a faint trace of a terrifying aura. Su Yen very keenly captured the anger emitted from Bamboo Moon, but she didn't say anything. Even with Bamboo Moon's current strength, it was difficult for her to face the danger she had encountered in the past. This was related to her strength. All right. Su Yen nodded. Then, he took out many yin-yang fish and handed them to Bamboo Moon. When Bamboo Moon saw the dozens of yin-yang fish in the space treasure that Su Yen handed over, she was frightened. She could even say that she was dumbfounded. Even someone of Bamboo Moon's status was frightened, so one could only imagine how great Su Yan's wealth was. Bamboo Moon wanted to laugh, but she couldn't because she knew very well how precious these dozens of yin-yang fish were. Even the whole of Hokuto didn't have these yin-yang fish, but Su Yen took them all out at once. Su Yen grinned, revealing his snow-white teeth, and said, I still have a lot of these things. Yin-yang fish will definitely help your body. I think it can increase your strength a lot. This is yin-yang fish. How can it not be important? Bamboo Moon tried to calm down. She shook her head gently and said, Forget it. This thing doesn't have much effect on me. Leave it for your people. I still have a lot. Su Yen said, I could survive back then because I ate a lot of yin-yang fish. A lot? How much is a lot? Bamboo Moon was stunned. She looked at Su Yen like a curious baby. At this moment, Bamboo Moon was a little cute, like an ignorant girl who could be tricked away at any time. Su Yen said a number, but Bamboo Moon didn't dare to believe what she heard. A few thousand? She was sure that Su Yen wasn't lying. Su Yen was worried that the effect wasn't enough, so he took out the strange yin-yang grass that he harvested from the yin-yang river. He felt that this thing was more precious than the yin-yang fish, but it was difficult for Su Yen to refine the yin-yang grass. This substance? Bamboo Moon was shocked. She thought that Su Yen had robbed an incomplete universe. The substance energy contained in the yin-yang grass made Bamboo Moon serious. Su Yen told her about the yin-yang road. He didn't know if Bamboo Moon knew about this force with her identity, but Bamboo Moon was also puzzled. She didn't know about this unknown and mysterious force. However, the force Su Yen described still shocked Bamboo Moon enough. How many more good things do you have? Su Yen took out some water of life and gave it to Bamboo Moon. This shocked the experienced Bamboo Moon. Moreover, this batch of resources was very important to her. It could allow her to accumulate a shocking foundation and allow her strength to advance by leaps and bounds. Su Yen spread his hands helplessly. That was all. He hoped that it would really be helpful to Bamboo Moon. She didn't hesitate at all. She found a place to cultivate. Bamboo Moon wanted to make herself stronger before the battle. Go into seclusion and refine it. Su Yen took out the water of life and gave it to Iyuan and Tensor. Tensor scratched his head. What great use could a dozen drops of seemingly ordinary water of life have? Su Yen didn't explain too much. Only when they cultivated and absorbed it could they understand the heaven-defying effects of the water of life. Su Yen felt that this item would be of great help even to Xiaohou. When he handed this item over to Xiaohou, who was sitting cross-legged in the void, had a glint in his eyes. His solemn eyes stared at the golden water droplets. Where did it come from? Xiaohou's voice was filled with excitement. Even the blood in his body was unstable. Grandpa Xiaohou, do you know what this substance is? Su Yen was stunned. He had looked through many ancient texts and couldn't find any clues about it. Xiahou swallowed a few mouthfuls of cold air and said solemnly, "How much more?" Su Yen took out more than 10 bottles. They were all spatial treasures. Although they could hold more than 10 oceans, there were only about 300 drops of the water of life in them. However, these 300 drops made Xiahou tremble. His hands trembled as he held the drops of water of life in his hands. It was as if he had obtained a treasure. "Grandpa Xiahou, is this thing especially valuable?" Su Yen looked at Xiahou in shock. What else in the world could affect Xiahou's state of mind? He said in surprise, "I know a place that has an entire lake of water of life." "What did you say? An entire lake?" Xiahou's breathing was very heavy. His eyes were red and his hands were trembling. A half-step Almighty couldn't control his emotions. It was obvious how heaven-defying this water of life was. An entire lake? Xiahou thought he had misheard. He couldn't control his emotions. After asking again and again, Su Yen nodded with certainty. This made Xiahou clench his fists and try to control his emotions. He laughed. "I never thought that our buried realm race would have such an opportunity. An entire lake. Heavens, how strong must this universe be to give birth to so many treasures? Unbelievable, unbelievable!" Xiahou wanted to go to that place and confirm whether or not it was really an entire lake. However, Su Yen bitterly smiled. The broken cauldron was with Baokai. It was impossible for him to step into the universe of death. However, with the broken cauldron on Baokai, Su Yen felt more at ease. He hoped that this broken cauldron could help Baokai block some disasters. "Grandpa Xiahou, what is this substance?" Su Yen suspiciously asked. "Can it help you?" "It's not just help, it has a miraculous effect even on supreme beings," Xiahou excitedly said. "I can't say what level this substance belongs to, but its name can be said to be Cosmic Mother Liquid." Cosmic Mother Liquid? Su Yen thought for a moment. He didn't know the origin of this substance. Take this vast universe for example. The life essence that is born here is amazing. But this kind of opportunity is too hard to find. Xiahou smacked his lips and said, "Many divine king whose lifespans are about to dry up would sometimes venture into the incomplete universe to search for Cosmic Mother Liquid. This Cosmic Mother Liquid is an energy crystallized substance born in the universe. It is very terrifying and is of great help to one's cultivation. Of course, there are strong and weak Cosmic Mother Liquids. I don't know how strong this Cosmic Mother Liquid is, because there are some special Cosmic Mother Liquids that can only be confirmed by supreme beings." Su Yan's heart trembled. He asked, "I once absorbed it and unlocked some of my body's potential. Its effect is heaven-defying. Could it be that this substance can only be unearthed according to the strength of the human body?" "That's right." Xiahou nodded and said, "Even for me, this substance has heaven-defying effects. I encountered obstacles on my path to becoming a supreme being, so I couldn't break through in one go. But now..." Xiahou laughed. "With the Cosmic Mother Liquid, it's different. It can help me perfect the Divine King's accumulation and carry out a second breakthrough. The success rate is very high." "What? You can carry out a second breakthrough?" Su Yen stood up. This was terrifying. The help it could provide to a half-step supreme being was so terrifying. It could give Xiahou the foundation to break through to the supreme being level. But he had a whole lake under his control. Didn't that mean that Su Dalong and the others had great hopes of continuing to strengthen their foundation and break through to the supreme being level? In that case, the Universe Mother Liquid was too important to a tribe. Su Yen couldn't help but laugh. This was a timely help for the Burial Realm tribe. You must survive. There is hope for the revival of the tribe. Xiahou's breathing became heavy. This made Su Yen understand a problem. It was no wonder that the Chaos Ruins were so attractive. It was no wonder that so many clans would fight over it and even follow some young primes. It turned out that in such a place of fortune, there really was a heaven-defying substance that could change the fate of a tribe. No wonder the ancestral hall, one of the greatest reapers of the Chaos Ruins, was so strong. The opportunities in the Chaos Ruins were really heaven-defying. Just the cosmic mother liquid was enough to make Xiahou go crazy. Child, remember, the universe of the past is fundamentally different from the present. The universe of that era had many powerhouses. Just the number of supreme beings in my tribe was no less than 1,000. Xiahou said. As time passed, the universe continued to decline and resources were scarce. Thus, a particularly serious problem appeared. That is, there weren't many peak resources left. Only the Chaos Ruins were a place for military strategists to fight for. There were treasures that people yearned for even in their dreams. To put it bluntly, if one wanted to become stronger, they had to go to the Chaos Ruins. Xiahou hoped that Su Yan could make a name for himself in the Chaos Ruins in the future. He hoped that he could occupy some resource mystic realms, or even incomplete universes, and obtain resources that could reverse the decline of the tribe. Su Yan nodded. Xia Zhe wanted to go to the place that Su Yan mentioned. Could a half-step supreme being not be able to break through? Chapter 743. Xiahou was silent. He had fought with the Yin-Yang Road before, but no matter how strong Xiahou was, he couldn't break through the Yin-Yang Road. This mysterious power was filled with eeriness and the unknown. Xiahou's understanding of it was limited because this faction was too mysterious. Since ancient times, they rarely made a move and only existed in the darkness. It was puzzling. When Su Yan spoke of his encounter with the Yin-Yang Road, Xiahou was stunned. A large number of Yin-Yang fish had been controlled by them, and there was no way to calculate the exact number. Su Yan had stolen their good fortune, and because of this mysterious faction had killed their way here? However, Su Yan felt that they were targeting Bao Kai, and not Su Yan this time. When Su Yan revealed Bao Cai's identity, Xiahou was suspicious. The sovereign of the demon region, the controller of the banners of demons, had the blood of the demon region flowing in his body. You have quite a lot of experience. Xiahou didn't expect Su Yan's experience to be so colorful. However, what he couldn't understand was that Tai Bao Kai controlled the banners of demons. He frowned and said, "The banners of demons. The demon region's waters are too deep. The ancestral hall wouldn't rashly provoke the demon region, especially the banners of demons. Since ancient times, the banners of demons were the sovereign of the demon region. However, what I didn't expect was that the controller of the banners of demons is now a living being of our race. Those who obtained the banners of demons were conferred as the sovereign of the demon region. This was like a supreme decree that had been passed down from generation to generation in the realm of demons. Every generation's strongest cultivator in the realm of demons was the one who held the 10,000 demon flag. It was like a mysterious incantation that could not be broken or reversed. Therefore, Xiahou felt that the waters of the demon realm were particularly deep. Although the origin of the banners of demons in this life was somewhat bizarre, could the decrees passed down by the demon realm's supreme masters since ancient times be rewritten in this life? It was truly a mystery. Su Yan, this faction is extremely mysterious and special. Finding them is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. You must be mentally prepared. Xiahou had no solution to this situation. Su Yan really hoped that Bao Kai would fall into the hands of the demon realm. That way, there would be some hope of rescuing him. However, if he really fell into the hands of the Yin-Yang Road, the universe was so big. Where to find them would be a big problem. I hope Bao Kai can hold on. Su Yan sat cross-legged in the starry sky. He felt that he had to become a god as soon as possible. Only by stepping into this stage could he have the ability to stand on his own. Before becoming a god, Su Yan wanted to refine the little divine king pill to strengthen his combat body. He was about to bathe in chaos and become stronger. Become a god. Su Yan muttered to himself, I have to make a trip to the Chaos Ruins. I'm now standing at the peak of the great Tao realm and very close to becoming a god. I wonder how this calamity will end. They're coming soon." Xiaohou did not waste any more time. He swallowed the universe liquid and refined it to perfect his foundation. It was good that he could do more in the upcoming calamity. "Is Zhu Tian still alive?" A hint of coldness flashed in Su Yan's eyes. When he recalled the little divine king pill, he thought of Zhu Tian. After killing him, Su Yan did not obtain anything. He had a question in his heart. Perhaps Zhu Tian was still alive. However, regardless of whether he was dead or not, Zhu Tian had already been defeated. Su Yan knew the combat strength of the ancestral hall like the back of his hand. If he could improve further, he could only rely on the little divine king pill. However, Su Yan also had the recipe for this pill. Soon, Su Yan also entered a state of recuperation. He prepared to rebuild his foundation and face the various calamities that Earth was about to encounter. His blood-stained combat body shone and swallowed the essence of the universe. With Su Yan's current state and his domain at the peak of the great Tao realm, as he swallowed, the essence of various galaxies in the universe passed through Su Yan's treasure body. However, with Su Yan's current foundation, it would take a long time for him to recover from this amount of absorption. The entire Milky Way seemed very quiet. The number of spectators at the edge of the Milky Way continued to increase. News also continued to spread, causing a terrifying earthquake. Everyone felt that it was hard to believe. Who would believe that an almighty from the ancestral hall had both arms chopped off? However, it really happened. Many people were even paying attention to it. The commotion in the universe was even greater. The appearance of the cosmic bridge seemed to be suppressing this storm. From this, one could see how great the influence of the cosmic bridge was. All the peak races were paying attention to the movements of the cosmic bridge. The cosmic bridge and the Tao Hall have appeared. Even Vice President Jin Yu has walked out of the Chaos Ruins. The peak races in the universe were in an uproar. Many experts chased after the cosmic bridge, but it was a pity that the cosmic bridge was too fast. They could not catch up at all. This made many experts sigh. The most outstanding disciples under them were puzzled as to why they were chasing after the cosmic bridge. This is an opportunity. If Vice President Jin Yu takes a fancy to you, you can directly become a disciple of the Tao Hall. An old expert said while panting. It's like reaching the heavens in a single step. The Tao Hall is a place where all the heroes of the world gather. Even the young Supremes will join. Even the Supremes will not refuse. What? Their rallying power is so great that even the Supremes will not refuse. Countless young people were shocked. Their revered Supreme figures might have chosen to join the Holy Ji Palace. What kind of power did this mysterious force belong to? People found it hard to believe. All the top families knew that once the cosmic bridge appeared, it meant that the Tao Temple was about to come into being. It wouldn't be long before they opened their doors and recruited heroes from all walks of life into the Tao Temple. This power was quite mysterious, but it had nurtured extraordinary young Supremes for generations. Moreover, this power did not exclude any race. As long as one was talented, they could enter the Tao Hall to be nurtured. However, the difficulty was extremely high. There had once been a young overlord who had been rejected at the door. The Tao Hall's recruitment requirements were also extremely harsh. For generations, there was a saying that was widely circulated in the chaotic ruins. Ingjia of every generation will enter the Tao Hall. From this, one could see the evaluation of the Tao Hall by all the major races. Their race had a terrifying reputation in the universe and their rallying power was shocking. Now that the cosmic bridge had appeared, how could they not be shocked? Many people chased after the cosmic bridge because they wanted to form a good relationship with Vice President Jin Yu and obtain benefits for the young people of their race. The world is going to be in chaos. The era of the young generation's rise has arrived. It's another golden era of chaos. Who will rule the rise and fall of the earth? A corner of the universe's chaos was revealed. All the major regions were surging with undercurrent. Even the races of the burial realm were showing signs of extinction. The cosmic bridge had appeared and the terrifying giants in the chaotic ruins were ready to make trouble. All of this caused the universe to be swept up in an unprecedented storm. This was the aura of a calamity. Some people could even see giants collapsing and disintegrating. In short, this storm was too ferocious and surging toward the Milky Way. Along the way, those who followed along felt their hearts tremble. The power gathered by the two peak races was indeed terrifying, especially after they had received inside information that the two divine king of the dark nether race had extinguished his primordial spirit lamp. No wonder the almighty of the dark nether race took action. It's unbelievable. How much power does the burial realm race have now? They actually killed the two divine king. Rumor has it that the burial realm race's nest has been found. As long as the nest is breached, the entire race will be wiped out. Without the origin of the race and without fresh blood, even the strongest race will decline sooner or later. Now that the two races have joined forces, who can contend against them? The universe was in turmoil. The movements of the two races were quite shocking. Wherever they passed, the starfields of the universe were almost silent. Only the terrifying armies passing by made it difficult for people to breathe. The storm was coming. It was destined to be recorded in history and passed down through the ages. That night, some races left with hope, determination, and the inheritance crystals of their races. They disappeared into some starfields and traveled far away. The storm was becoming more and more spectacular. Their destination was the Milky Way. The Milky Way seemed to have sensed something. Amidst the storm that came from the depths of the universe, the Milky Way emitted a heavy aura. It made the races of the Huaxia Alliance straighten their backs under high pressure. Buzz. In the starry sky, a resplendent figure appeared. Her graceful figure emitted the brilliance of the starry sky. She was like a goddess born from the starry sky. She was filled with boundless divine might and surged with terrifying chaotic waves. This was Bamboo Moon awakening. Under the nourishment of the universe's mother liquid, her aura soared by a large margin. Behind her, the sun and moon rose and fell, embracing yin and yang, lingering in the chaos, spreading an aura that suppressed the sea of stars. All kinds of resplendent moonlight and starlight emerged from her physique. She was like the master of the moon palace, the goddess of stars and moon. Her aura collided with each other, releasing blazing waves that overflowed the sky. Su Yen looked at Bamboo Moon. With the help of the universe's mother liquid, her strength soared. She escaped into an extremely powerful domain, as if she had perfected her foundation. Her foundation also surged by a large margin. Bamboo Moon's eyes were still filled with shock. She couldn't imagine what kind of treasure the golden liquid that Su Yen had given her was. It actually allowed her to make up for her flaws and strengthen her foundation. Her combat power was much stronger than a few days ago. Originally, Bamboo Moon still needed several more years to accumulate. It might even take as long as 10 years. However, the universe's mother liquid and the good fortune of the Yin-Yang Road erased this period of time. Moreover, her potential had been unearthed to an extent that exceeded her expectations. Therefore, Bamboo Moon was moved. That thing was really amazing. Grandpa Xiahou is also about to wake up. Su Yan's gaze fell on Xiahou again. He was in seclusion, sitting cross-legged on the sun and refining the universe's mother liquid. The amount of universe's mother liquid on Su Yan was already a priceless number, but Xiahou couldn't use up so much. More than 100 drops were enough for him to make up for some of his flaws. It would play a crucial role in the next round of breakthrough. With the passage of time, Su Yan vaguely noticed that Xiahou's aura was becoming stronger. He was tyrannical like an existence that filled the entire Milky Way. He was continuously expanding his essence blood into the outer space. It could be said that he was becoming very strong. He was becoming stronger in the domain of the Almighty. The resources required in the process were enormous and could easily exhaust the treasury of a powerful race. However, they had previously massacred more than a dozen resource areas in the ancestral hall. The harvest was huge, and they could freely move resources and foundations. Su Yen also came out of seclusion and recovered to his peak state. He stood in the solar system, holding the immortal iron rod with one arm like a golden god of war guarding the heavens. They were here. That's right, Su Yen had already felt the killing intent. It came from a very, very far away place, but it indicated that they were coming and were very close to the Milky Way. This race was defeated in the end. Many people sighed. The onlookers around the Milky Way dispersed in large numbers. They were really afraid of being affected and dying tragically in this struggle for hegemony. Some people had already seen that in the depths of the universe, waves of terrifying auras were spreading and covering the vast starry sky. They were getting closer and closer to the Milky Way. If someone saw the scene of two peak races going to war, they would definitely be scared half to death. It was no less than 1 million troops going to war. Wherever they passed, the starry sky trembled. This was the arrival of heavenly soldiers and generals, bringing with them killing intent and an aura of extermination. They're here. Su Yen looked at the Milky Way. He could vaguely see the appearance of endless soldiers and horses. There were all kinds of terrifying lights surging towards the Milky Way. Chapter 744. How many troops did they send? Is the buried region that powerful? Some cultivators who were hiding in the distance were trembling. The commotion was too outrageous. It was as if the heavens were sending out their troops. Millions of soldiers were passing through, shaking the starry sky of the universe. The footsteps of the soldiers were in unison, and it was like the rumbling of heavenly drums and thunderclaps that were deafening. Moreover, it was accompanied by monstrous killing intent and terrifying fluctuations of blood essence that surged and stretched out, covering the heavens and the earth and filling the vast expanse of the starry sky. One had to know that this line was very long, one couldn't see the end. All the soldiers were wearing battle armor and carrying iron spears. Their killing intent soared into the sky. Their power gathered together, piercing through the heavens. It was as if a battle line that stretched for millions of miles had been pulled open. What kind of divine might was this? It was truly intimidating, enough to make 10,000 races tremble in fear. From this kind of power, one could see that the Kuan family back then wasn't much. There was still a gap between them and the peak races. Moreover, those battleships were densely packed. There were no less than 10,000 battleships. Battleships after battleships formed a group. They emitted all kinds of terrifying light, carrying all kinds of great killing weapons. It was truly frightening. To deal with the buried region? Some people's voice trembled. Wasn't this a bit too much? However, some people sneered. You think too highly of the buried region. I think they didn't come for the buried region. They came to an agreement to join hands and occupy Earth. They wanted to occupy this ancient planet with endless potential. You think too little of the buried region. However, some people didn't think so. They felt that the buried region wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. A starving camel was still bigger than a horse. They must have some hidden trump cards. They would definitely fight in this battle. It was time for the flames of their race to be extinguished. Everyone thought that the buried region's strength would be revealed in this battle. The aura of war filled the starfield. Everyone knew that the ancestral hall's 100,000 heads were flying in the sky. The losses were incomparably heavy. The Almighty's arms were broken, and Zhu Tian was killed by Su Yen. As for the Dark Nether race, 2 of their divine king were killed in the Milky Way. One was torn apart and the other was trampled to death. This kind of humiliation made the Dark Nether race furious. They couldn't wait to tear the buried region apart. They crazily rushed toward the Milky Way. All troops on alert. Lei Lao and the others stood up. Although they knew that their own strength was not enough to make a difference on the battlefield, they wanted to join hands to face the enemy. They wanted to live and die together, and share trials and tribulations together. Boom! The Milky Way galaxy trembled. The momentum that had spread from the depths of the universe finally pressed down. It was boundless, vast, and turbulent, causing the entire Milky Way galaxy to start trembling. It was a scene that was about to collapse. Outside of the Milky Way, killing intent blossomed. It was a blood-red expanse. The peerless killing intent and the power of 100,000 gods and demons combined into one filled the air with a murderous intent that could annihilate an entire race. It dyed the vast Milky Way galaxy blood-red, as if it was going to turn it into a great world with mountains of corpses and seas of blood. How terrifying! Many spectators felt a chill run down their spines from head to toe. Their skin and bones were cold, and even their souls were trembling. Under this kind of killing intent, their flesh shells were about to explode and be riddled with holes. They were going to be destroyed under great fear and buried in purgatory. However, this was only the beginning. Their troops had yet to fully descend into the world. The starry skies couldn't possibly allow so many troops to arrive. In that case, they would all arrive one after another in the next few days. Moreover, a major event had occurred. The distant starry skies trembled even more violently. Countless stars were like dumplings as they fell down uniformly with rustling sounds. The aura of an Almighty from the ancestral hall emerged. He was like a supreme god of the starry skies. His arms had recovered, and his body was suffused with a furious killing intent. He wanted to incinerate the entire Milky Way galaxy. A powerful expert needed a great foundation to regrow his severed arms. To be able to recover in such a short period of time, he had definitely used divine medicines to continue the battle. This proved that the following battle was very important. The almighty expert's aura devoured a great region. His essence blood surged and pierced through the heavens. It was terrifying to the extreme. Boom! However, another aura not inferior to the ancestral hall's ancient ancestor was released. This was the ancestor of the dark underworld race. He was boundlessly terrifying. With a loud roar, the sea of stars exploded. The boundless world trembled as boundless gales swept over and rushed towards the Milky Way galaxy. Heavens, the two almighty experts have arrived. Everyone was shaken. Their souls were throbbing, and the spectators were all terrified. They wanted nothing more than to flee the battlefield and never come close to this place. The two almighty experts were floating at the edge of the Milky Way galaxy. Their eyes were filled with killing intent, and their bodies were surging with the light of order. This was the arrangement of the two great cosmoses, revealing a will that could make all living things submit. Dang! They issued a decree at the same time. Their words were law, and the cosmos was filled with killing intent. Boundless blood covered the sky and the sun. It seemed as if the entire Milky Way galaxy was about to shatter. Roar! The trembling Milky Way galaxy was suddenly filled with divine radiance. Xiahou had awakened. He was even more powerful and ferocious than before. His essence blood flowed through the entire Milky Way galaxy, and he grasped the power of Earth. He was like a supreme god who had activated the mysterious code between heaven and Earth. As this blue planet revolved, the entire Milky Way galaxy continued to shine. In the end, a peerless killing intent was unleashed. A peerless combat strength caused even a corner of the cosmos to tremble. A peerless domain. What kind of existence arranged it? Everyone saw that the Milky Way galaxy had changed. It was as if it had transformed into an ancient immortal cauldron. Immortal splendor surged with tens of thousands of rays of light. It was as if a supreme treasure was floating here. Moreover, its might was ever-changing. In the entire Milky Way galaxy, billions of stars were arranged neatly and uniformly. It was as if heavenly soldiers were giving a sermon here. Sometimes it would transform into a cauldron, Sometimes it would transform into a divine spear, sometimes it would transform into a killing sword, and sometimes it would transform into a giant bell. This kind of abnormality was truly boundlessly powerful. It released a peerless power that lay horizontally here. It was as if it had transformed into an eternal heavenly pass that guarded Earth. The race of the burial region, dang. Another cold shout resounded. The two almighty experts finally began to make their move. They possessed remarkable abilities and were omnipotent. They could move mountains and fill seas. The might of the two almighty experts rushed toward the Milky Way galaxy. This was a peerless collision that caused the world to tremble. It was equivalent to a matchless battle between two universes. Under the impact of this kind of domain, even gods and devils would have to nurse a grievance. Boom! A tsunami-like rumbling sound exploded with a loud bang. The starry seas in outer space trembled. Resplendent rays of light resembled the unsheathing of an immortal sword. The great stars of the universe exploded one after another. This was merely the aftermath of the collision. It was difficult to imagine how terrifying the power was. It was absolutely capable of strangling a heavenly deity. It completely erupted just like this. It was as if 100,000 starry seas had burst their banks at the same time. The terrifying divine might released flooded the boundless starry skies. People suspected that this kind of terrifying fluctuation could drown 10 starfields and lead to a great disaster. It would definitely lead to an end of misery and suffering. The strength of the Milky Way galaxy exceeded everyone's expectations. There existed a domain that connected the heavens and the earth. It was enough to stop the footsteps of the almighty experts. However, now that two almighty experts had appeared and joined forces to attack, they became even more powerful. In the end, they still rushed toward the Milky Way galaxy in their strongest state. They erupted with their most invincible power and produced some kind of resistance against the boundless Milky Way galaxy. Once this kind of resistance was born, the almighty experts would not be able to divert their hands and feet for a short period of time. However, at the same time, the Milky Way galaxy's domain was also in a state of suppression. In other words, the domain protecting the Milky Way galaxy would begin to lose its effectiveness in a short period of time. Ha 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 ha! It was also at this time that one figure after another with terrifying auras appeared. It was a number that was enough to make people despair. The two groups had sent a total of 12 divine kings. Each of them was capable of swallowing the starry skies and dominating the world. They were looking down on the Earth lineage. They were laughing, and their laughter was cruel and cold. That was because in the entire Milky Way galaxy, only one Xiao Ho could stand firm. Although he was a half-step almighty, how could 12 divine kings fear a single half-step almighty expert? This was a bloody reality. The two peak groups were too tyrannical. They had dispatched 12 divine kings. They coldly sneered, "What's the point of the buried realm race persevering any longer? If you don't surrender now and welcome our return, what are you waiting for? Haha, you're the only one? What's the use? Surrender obediently and you'll suffer less pain and suffering." Their words were full of mockery and ridicule. They stood on high and looked down on the Earth lineage with disdain. Bullsh *T. Who said my buried realm race only has one person? A soul-tearing roar exploded, threatening to shatter one's divine soul. That was a boundless, ominous aura spreading out. Two terrifying figures charged towards the Milky Way galaxy. At the same time, a dozen heavenly deities also rushed over. This was Su Dalong and Yi Lingtian, leading their old subordinates back to their homeland. It seems that everyone is here. Do you think you're very strong? The buried realm race is already a thing of the past. A new era is about to begin. Those who block the way will be killed without mercy. The Kuan family's half-step almighty expert had arrived. His injuries had healed as he spoke coldly. Ignorant brat, is it your turn to speak here? Get lost. This daddy has already sent people to kill their way into the Kuan family's resource lands in the primal chaos ruins. News of victory will soon come from the battlefield. Prick up your dog ears and listen carefully. Don't be muddle-headed again. Suddenly, a dozen terrifying battleships rushed towards the Milky Way galaxy. The leading blood-colored battleship was suffused with a heaven-devouring aura. A figure walked out from within and tore apart the firmament. This was an old man draped in blood-colored robes. His sharp eyebrows reached his temples, and he was abnormally terrifying. There was a huge blood lion standing behind him, looking down on the common people. This was a veteran divine king, known as the Blood Lion Divine King. When he saw Xiahou and the others, his eyes turned red. He even trembled as he looked at Earth. He couldn't control his emotions and roared with surging emotions. Unfilial descendant Zhang Yi, lead the Blood Lion mercenary group and return to our homeland. Return to our homeland and protect our race. Kill all the foreign enemies. Kill all the foreign enemies. Protect our race. The roars of the magnificent army stirred their blood energy. The dozen battleships immediately erupted with a bloody light that blotted out the sky. This was a sea of blood rushing towards the Milky Way galaxy and returning to the progenitor. Many people were dumbfounded. The Blood Lion mercenary group was a famous force in the universe. They were even more terrifying than the Dark Mercenary group. They actually belonged to the Buried Realm race. How can the Hong family be left out in protecting our race? I, Hong Tiangang, announce that I represent the Flood Source Starfield's Hong family and return to our homeland. Chapter 745. Long roars filled with excitement and love for their race. They couldn't suppress their emotions and spread throughout the entire Milky Way. Long Xian Star Region's Qing family returns. Chaos Ruins by family returns. That boundless momentum was magnificent and vast, containing their fanatical feelings for their race. The back progenitor was their home, and they had finally returned. In this most difficult time, they had made the decision to risk the extinction of their race and return to the back progenitor. They wanted to do their part for their race. Even if their race was exterminated, they didn't care. They had been hiding for many years, and some of them had even concealed their identities from their ancestors. However, during this period of time, they had heard news about the ancestral star, and the news that the Zanga clan was on the verge of extinction. They couldn't bear it any longer. They reorganized their race and returned to their homeland. Their ancestral blood was boiling, the battle blood of their ancestors roaring. They and the Buried Region race were an inseparable part of themselves. Now that they saw Earth and sensed a familiar aura, they couldn't help but roar. This was because there were many Earth bloodlines that were exactly the same as theirs. Those were their people, and the same blood flowed through their bodies, immortal for all eternity. Su Yen didn't dare to forget the origin of the Buried Region race. That was when the immortal star collapsed. Large and small forces gathered together, and they were called the Buried Region race. It was a force formed by the convergence of many races. But after a long time, the name of this race was treated as their own. It was treated as a faith in their hearts. They protected it, loved it. It was the trend of the times, the will of the people. When their race was on the brink of extinction, they all came. They carried the will to advance and retreat with their race, to resist the enemy hand in hand. They didn't fear death as they rushed towards the Milky Way. Originally, many races thought that their bloodline was the only one still alive. But they didn't expect that so many races would return at once. It was like a dragon returning to the sea, reversing the decline of the Buried Region race in an instant. This had a great connection with the back progenitor. Once, among their ancestors, there was a powerful ancestor who was a core member. He understood the secrets of the back progenitor, but they didn't know where the back progenitor was. In the past, they had been separated and lost contact with their families. Slowly, they began to live in seclusion. After all, the Buried Region race had no foundation in the universe. It could be said that the Buried Region clan had been fragmented for a long time. Their clans were scattered all over the vast star field. However, their descendants had already grown up and even became experts who ruled over a region. Even now, they still couldn't forget the unwillingness of their elders before they died. It was because they wanted to return to their clan and see their old brothers one last time. There were also some conclave experts from the necropolis who had left behind their last word. The progenitor was the signal to summon them, and when the necropolis appeared, they would return with their entire clan. They, the onlookers, were stunned. They could not believe the scene in front of them. There were too many races and forces rushing towards the Milky Way, and many of them were famous in the universe. However, who would have thought that they belonged to a clan from the burial region, and were connected to them by blood? At the critical moment of their clan's survival, they had surfaced. This call of bloodline connection, the will to join hands to resist the enemy, caused the entire Milky Way to ripple with all sorts of emotions. However, without exception, their bloodlines were resonating with each other, burning and glowing. This made the younger generation of their families excited and shocked. They could really feel the connection of their bloodlines. They were even filled with the emotions of returning to their homeland for the back progenitor. This was their home, their true ancestral land. This made many of the onlookers' hair stand on end. It was hard to believe that this clan still had such rallying power. When Xiahou and the others decided to stay and fight to the end, they seemed to have expected this day to come. However, Su Dalong and the others had never imagined that so many clans and forces would come. It made them want to cry. They felt that if they died in battle, they would have no regrets. Ha 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 ha! Loud laughter echoed throughout the Milky Way. Their bloodlines were connected, and they glowed and resonated at the same time. This caused the vast Milky Way to be filled with the terrifying flames of war, burning fiercely. A once terrifying clan had stood up here. The general trend of the universe would eventually add the name of the Upper Burial Region to it. This clan was no longer in decline, and they were emitting all sorts of terrifying brilliance, burning fiercely here. Why are we a traitor clan? Many of the young soldiers of the Kuan family didn't dare to look directly at them. Their expressions were filled with fear because they felt their own bloodline boiling. They wanted to return to the Milky Way, and they couldn't even control their emotions. There were people who wanted to go over and become one of them because they didn't want to bear the title of traitor. The news that the Kuan family was a traitor had spread in recent years. They didn't know about it before, and this made them feel extremely humiliated. The Kuan family's patriarch's face was gloomy. He had never thought that the Upper Burial Region would be able to reunite. This clan's general trend filled the entire Milky Way. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers and horses had gathered. Including Yi Lingtian and the others, there were 9 divine king and more than 30 heavenly deities. This was quite powerful, and could definitely be called a superpower that dominated the universe. How terrifying! Could it be that the Upper Burial Region is going to become a peak clan again? Why can't this clan be wiped out? How many clansmen do they have? Some people's voices were trembling. This was because they had a new ancestral land, a progenitor, and the foundation for the clan's rise. Even with their current strength, they had a great chance of becoming a peak clan. Only by understanding the past of the Upper Burial Region clan did they truly understand the origins of this clan. They weren't just a simple clan, but a power formed by the immortal star to contend against the darkness. How can a peak clan be established so easily? Moreover, the Upper Burial Region clan's foundation is indeed powerful. But the gap between them and the ancestral hall is still too great. Some people shook their heads. One had to know that the ancestral hall's experts were all gathered in the chaotic ruins. Moreover, many of the clan's foundations were hibernating and wouldn't come out easily. If they really did come out of seclusion, it would be terrifying. What's the point? The divine king of the dark underworld race sneered. Even if you have millions of soldiers, what can you change? Now that you've jumped out, don't you know what the outcome will be? Your courage is indeed admirable, but I have to say that this is an extremely foolish decision. Today, the Upper Burial Region clan will be destroyed. Since you've come, then you'd better be prepared to be completely wiped out. At the edge of the Milky Way, a murderous aura spread out like an ocean. It surged like the sea, setting off sky-shaking waves. The strength of the two peak clans pressed towards the Milky Way. Countless soldiers and horses emitted a bone-piercing cold light. In the vast starfield, murderous aura surged, shaking the heavens and earth. A boundless battlefield was about to be born. It was filled with an austere aura, so cold that it chilled people to the bone. Their minds couldn't help but tremble. Facing the boundless austere aura from all directions, the Milky Way felt as if millions of mountains were pressing down on it. However, this couldn't crush the fighting spirit of the Upper Burial Region clan. It couldn't crush their backbone, and it couldn't make them yield. Then let's fight. Beat them for me. The Blood Lion Divine King let out a loud roar. He carried a halberd with one arm, exuding the ferocious aura of a peerless overlord. He shouted angrily, "Even if our clan bleeds to the last drop of blood, we'll make you decline in this era. You want to destroy us? You'll have to ask the heavenly blade in my hand first." Another old divine king shouted. Hong Tian Gang carried a red heavenly blade. The boundless blade energy was tens of thousands of zhang long. It could easily shatter the stars in the sky. Protect our clan, kill all the enemies! Protect our clan, kill all the enemies! Protect our clan, kill all the enemies! In the Milky Way, the killing intent was bright to the extreme. It was so dazzling that it made one's eyes bleed. That was killing intent, the peerless killing intent of the entire clan. It was like a Milky Way dragon that soared into the sky. It represented the Upper Burial Region, the gathering of all the clans. Their momentum swept through the sky, shaking the firmament and piercing through the heavens. Moreover, their bloodlines resonated, wanting to destroy a star field. What kind of terrifying might was this? They wanted to rush into the universe and compete with the other peak clans for supremacy. It was too unimaginable. They're stubborn. Kill them for me. Let them know what cruelty is, what the truth is, and what the extermination of a clan is. The great figures of the two peak clans roared together. They waved their hands and issued the military order. Kill. Exterminate the Lower Burial Region clan. Tear this clan to shreds. Let them cease to exist. Let them know what the cruel truth is. Kill. Tear these people who live in a fantasy to shreds. The tigers and wolves of the two great clans instantly rushed out. It was a terrifying scene that could collapse the heavens. As soon as this confrontation began, it caused a great earthquake in the universe. The boundless starry skies were stirred up with perilous waves. When these battles collided, the spectating cultivators felt a chill from head to toe. Only now did they realize how bloody and cruel this battle would be once it erupted. With just a single exchange, the heavens seemed to have collapsed. Millions and millions of stars trembled. A terrifying and boundless killing intent gathered together, forming a whirlwind that could exterminate a star field. It rushed out in all directions. This kind of battle was too terrifying. It could easily affect star fields. The flames of war were enough to alarm over 100 star fields. Kill. From both sides there were incomparably tyrannical war generals who charged forward. They carried great halberds and cut through the void. They carried the determination and fighting spirit to hack apart the enemy's head. They wanted the enemy to be dyed in blood. Roar. The battlefield immediately became berserk to the extreme. In this type of grand battlefield, not even the Divine King could dominate an area. When faced with this type of crazy slaughter, the Burial Region clan rushed out in group. Several 100,000 vicious weapons burned with the flames of war. Their bloodlines resonated, and it was as if a boundless sea of blood was thrown into the battlefield, tearing apart the heavens and splitting the seas. The blood was like a vast sea that swept out. Corpses and bones danced about chaotically like the ruins of an enormous city. The entire world seemed to have become the color of blood. Millions of vicious weapons were fighting, corpses piled up like mountains, forming a bloody starry sky. It rested in a corner of the universe, shaking heaven and earth. Kill! Su Yen roared, his pupils widening. He released the most powerful potential, the most berserk battle intent. It resonated with the immortal iron staff, possessing unmatched battle strength. He was especially powerful and intimidating, even taller than gods and devils. He instantly attacked, his bravery unstoppable. A long river of blood that was 100 li long appeared in the void. When the immortal iron staff smashed forward, large amounts of enemy troops were blasted into a bloody mist. Recently, I've been renovating my house, often leaving early in the morning and only coming back at noon. The brothers who have renovated their houses all understand that it takes several months. Chapter 746. A corner of the battlefield blossomed with the light of blood. Su Yen seemed to be pushing through dry weeds as he slaughtered his way through. Corpses danced in the air. Although this was a very small battlefield in the vast battlefield, the foul wind and rain of blood still caused the expressions of the highly strung warriors of the burial realm to change. Who's so valiant? They were quite shocked. Just now, they had clearly sensed an abnormally ferocious power piercing through space. It was unstoppable, smashing a large number of soldiers to death. Even the charging figure was quite valiant. He had already charged into the battlefield filled with the stench of blood. He held an immortal iron staff and began a massacre, looking down on everyone. It's him. It's Su Yen. Suddenly, many young people shouted excitedly. Did you see that? He's the strongest of the younger generation of the burial realm. He even killed the son of the ancestral hall's ancestor. What? He's Su Yen, the madman Su who killed the son of an almighty expert. When I learned of this matter, I found it unbelievable that such a man had come out of the burial realm. The small battlefield was in an uproar. Many people's eyes were fanatical as they watched the extremely valiant figure slaughter his way into the battlefield. Su Yan's movements were too fast. He reaped lives on the battlefield. So what if a deity expert came? He could crush them with a single punch. How terrifying! He's the young paragon of our race, a legendary figure in the universe. He's even killed a heavenly god before. He's even stronger than before. Ah! Su Yen, what a good Su Yen! As expected of the rising star of the burial realm. He killed the son of an almighty expert just like that. Good! Su Yan's ferocious might inspired everyone on the battlefield. Of course, that wasn't all. The Huaxia clans were showing signs of rising, but now they also had a young king who could dominate a battlefield. Yuan was now extremely powerful. He was the martial arts god of war, and it was as if there were many war gods behind him. His body was bursting with divine light, suppressing a corner of the battlefield. His silver force armor was activated, and he was ferocious. There was no doubt that Yuan and Tensor had become even more powerful. After receiving the nourishment of the cosmic mother liquid, their battle prowess had risen to a whole new level. They were peerless generals on the battlefield, and in any starfield, they were young gods of war who could look down upon the starry skies with disdain. However, no matter how strong they were on this battlefield, they could only stir up some waves. What a terrifying battle! Is this the strongest expedition that has happened in this universe era? Even the Divine King is putting his life on the line. Human lives are like grass. How long can the Zhenghe clan last in a direct confrontation with a million vicious weapons? The spectators were trembling. The aftershock of the collision was like numerous strands of eternal sword chi that swept through the boundless expanse and slashed apart numerous stars in the universe, and it shook them to the point their souls were trembling. On this kind of battlefield, the smell of blood was like an ocean, surging without end. The vast starry skies were dyed red with blood. Corpses covered the skies, and a bloody radiance rose up, illuminating the entire world with a blood-red hue. Kill! War cries shook the heavens and earth. In such a grand and desperate battlefield, even heavenly deities seemed small and insignificant. On the battlefield, numerous figures were exchanging blows, fiercely killing each other. The sea of stars was shaking, emitting all sorts of bitter killing intent. Many people were roaring, revealing an iron-blooded tyrannical aura. "I want to see how long you can last." The two peak clans emitted a murderous intent to slaughter all living things. Many great figures felt that victory was within their grasp, because their side still had an endless stream of troops charging into the battlefield. Even in the next 10 days to half a month, even more troops would come to kill their way. "Protect my race and kill all enemies." Furious voices, containing a will that didn't fear death and a conviction to crush the enemy. The war between their races had already continued for an endless amount of time, but the result had always been the buried region race fleeing in all directions, losing contact with their clansmen. This was because they had lost their ancestral land. In the endless era, their races had been scattered, unable to find a path to gather together. Every once in a while, there would be news of a buried region race's land being destroyed, and news of a certain expert being killed would spread. This was humiliation and grief. They were like stragglers who had lost contact with each other, scattered throughout the great regions of the universe. In the end, the day they had been waiting for arrived. The progenitor would reappear in this world, and the buried region race's second ancestral land would emerge. They had previously lost their ancestral land, and if they lost their second ancestral land as well, then what hope did the buried region race have of rising up again? Talking about revenge was just a fool's dream. Now that they had gathered, their bloodlines resonating, illuminating the heavens. The anger of gods and devils pervaded the air, and they released the will to protect their race. They didn't want to hide, nor did they want to shoulder the blood debt of their ancestors. They wanted to stand out and fight, respond to the two great races with their strength. Kill. The battle was especially intense. Blood dyed the heavens, and gods and devils danced chaotically. This battle was destined to be recorded in the annals of history. Even the divine king was going to nurse a grievance. On the grand battlefield, no one had any misgivings about the life or death of their comrade. Many people's eyes were red from the slaughter, and they released a crazy amount of power to contribute to their race. Ho! A loud roar split the heavens. The blood-colored divine king was released, and it was as if he was a blood-colored lion rushing over from history. The blood lion divine king's terrifying power shocked the world, and his attacks caused the entire Kunkang region to tremble. He staggered backwards, and he coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. "Traitorous brat, hand over your life!" The blood lion divine king emitted a berserk battle intent. He was extremely valiant, and no longer remained dormant. His bloodline strength had awakened, and he was like a great blood-colored demon king. His fighting strength wasn't inferior to Su Dalong's group, and he could definitely be called the most powerful divine king. Pung pung pung. Several heavenly deities around Kuantianyu exploded, and they prostrated themselves beneath the blood lion divine king's feet. This made Kuantianyu roar continuously in anger. He had suffered a crushing defeat, and he was completely crippled. The Kuan family's people were in an extremely miserable state. After all, they were traitorous clans, and the burial region hated the Kuan family even more than the ancestral hall and underworld race. The Kuan family's old ancestor couldn't contend against the current Xiahou at all. No matter how strong the Kuan family's old ancestor was, he was still suppressed greatly by Xiahou. Xiahou was like a supreme demon king who had crossed over into the realm of supreme experts, and he had gone berserk while bathed in divine blood. Pooh! That Zhu Cheng was extremely terrifying and tyrannical. He had accumulated enough strength to break through into the realm of supreme expert. The old divine king was seriously injured by him. He released a cold shout, and he swept through the army, massacring all the nearby experts. Zhu Cheng's expression sunk, and his sharp eyes suddenly fell on a corner of the battlefield. That corner of the battlefield drew everyone's attention. Everyone was staring at a figure bathed in divine blood. He was slaughtering in all directions, sweeping through experts from all sides, truly slaughtering the enemies until they trembled in fear. This was unmatched strength, and anyone who came into contact with him would die. Su Yan's eyes were red from slaughter, and his pupils reflected bloody radiance. His body surged with world-shocking power, and with the immortal iron staff in hand, he smashed a divine expert until he exploded. Well killed. Many soldiers were shaken and stirred up. How old was Su Yan? A divine expert was blasted apart with a single staff strike. This truly left them shaken. With this kind of fierce general present, it was enough to sweep through an area, and it provided quite a bit of help to the greater situation. Bastard! Zhu Qing closed in on Su Yan. He was also like a blood-colored overlord, wishing to hunt down Su Yan. However, unfortunately, Zhu Qing was blocked by the heavily injured old divine king. He released a crazy laugh. The glorious divine king actually hunted down my clan's young supreme expert, truly laughable. Who in your clan dares to fight against my clan's young supreme expert one-on-one? Impudent! Zhu Qing was shocked and furious. Cold lightning shot out from his eyes as he instantly issued a battle order. Men, suppress Su Yan and bring him away. Zhu Qing was a leading expert, and his orders were as heavy as a mountain. It also represented the collapse of mountains and the splitting of seas. Su Yan, he's actually still alive. Groups of experts went crazy and their eyes turned red. This was especially true for the experts of the dark underworld race. They learned that one of the divine king's experts had been torn apart by Su Yan. They swept through the battlefield, all of them rushing over with no regard for their own lives. They were heavenly gods. Swathes of deity realm experts had gathered together and unleashed their furious killing intent. They wanted to suppress Su Yan and wipe away their previous humiliation. Suppress Su Yan. Tens of millions of armored cavalry galloped and whistled. A storm gathered as they passed through the battlefield, charging towards Su Yan. In a short period of time, the charging force they had gathered was difficult to resist. Large groups of soldiers from the burial realm were sent flying. They roared with red eyes, issuing warnings. Su Yan, run. Retreat to the rear for now. Don't fight them head-on. Many old soldiers cried out in alarm as they charged towards Su Yan. Now, the experts of the Ancestral Hall and the dark underworld race were charging madly without any regard for the consequences. All kinds of great killing weapons were brought out, and a storm of divine energy was born. They carried peerless boldness and wanted to suppress Su Yan on the spot. Come if you're not afraid of death. In the face of this iron-blooded suppression, Su Yan let out a wild roar amidst the darkness and blood. His hair danced wildly, and his essence blood rushed into the heavens. Even if the sky collapsed in front of him, he wouldn't bat an eyelid. That kind of surging battle intent, that kind of peerless attitude, that kind of tyrannical ferocious might cause the world to explode. The sky was filled with corpses and blood, and it began to bloom. At this moment, Su Yan's majestic appearance was world-shocking. He was truly like a heavenly deity erupting. Moreover, his hands held the immortal iron staff. When he waved it, it was as if 100,000 true dragons had left the cage and surged towards the incoming flood of iron and blood. Kill! Su Yan roared. His eyes overflowed with killing intent, shaking the enemy's souls. Strands of exceptionally terrifying aura awakened. The immortal iron staff shone, and the battle force was unstoppable. It was as if the phantom that had once smashed the 9 heavens and 10 earths had appeared. It wanted to crush the boundless starry skies and collapse the entire battlefield. Honglong! The universe exploded like a clap of thunder. It was ear-splitting and tore apart many people's eardrums. That is, everyone present trembled. The darkness and blood had exploded. Su Yen was like a demon god from hell. His rod had pierced thousands of holes in the heavens and the earth. Endless light was released. Accompanied by the fighting power, the bombardment caused the torrent to collapse. Groups of experts exploded. Even heavenly deities were no exception. Their bodies were blasted apart by a single staff. Boundless vicious energy rippled through the battlefield just like that. It was accompanied by blood and miserable cries, attacking until the tens of thousands of enemies were terrified, fleeing in panic. That was a world-shocking figure that appeared in the blood-colored battlefield, tearing apart the iron and blood suppression. Moreover, he stuck close to the blood-colored starry skies as he charged forward. Su Yan's head of long hair scattered down, the essence energy within his body burning like an undying divine furnace. His moves were large and powerful, suppressing forward. Who dares receive a fist from me? In this world where a rain of blood scattered down, Su Yen punched the heavens. He erupted while bathed in blood, his bravery unstoppable. Chapter 747. Su Yen was too valiant. The immortal iron staff was extremely helpful to him. It allowed him to obtain a source of power that was enough to blow apart heavenly deities, allow him to run amok on the battlefield. The domain of heavenly deities was extremely important to a group of races. They could be considered the pillars of their race. After all, this group of people might be able to produce a divine king in the future. But now, Su Yen was actually killing heavenly deities. That immortal iron staff smashed apart the iron blood suppression, sweeping through 1,000 army, full of the most domineering power, striking the experts that were pouncing over until they screamed miserably in despair. A large number of fighting soldiers' bodies exploded. Under Su Yan's exceptional sharpness, they couldn't survive at all. Even if they were brushed by the immortal iron staff, they still suffered an intense tearing pain, their bodies flying out as they were shattered. In the vast battlefield, Su Yen truly reached the point where he could look down on everything, in the domain of who could contend against him. Heavens, hurry and leave! The gods and devils were all trembling, because Su Yen rushed into the battlefield, his entire body surging with vicious energy. His head of blood-dyed hair danced about chaotically, his tyrannical bearing revealing 10,000 streaks of light. That fist was truly iron blood, even more terrifying than the great stars of the universe, rushing over just like that. Kill! Su Yen roared loudly, his valiance exceptional, shattering the enemy's courage, dominating the heavens. Ah! A large number of cultivators exploded. Many of those that were sent flying by the immortal iron staff were blasted into bloody mist by Su Yan's fist wind. This was a tragic ending where their bodies and souls were wiped out. His move erupted, shocking everyone, killing until even the heavenly deities were horrified. His blood-dyed figure was like a god or devil that rushed out from hell, overlooking all living things. How is this possible? Many spectators were frightened, their legs going soft. They all felt like they were seeing things. Was this still the Su Yen of the past? Right now, he could even blast apart heavenly deities, blast through divine realm experts with a single fist. Just how powerful was this person? Exactly what domain was he standing in? There were some whose eyes were extremely sinister, feeling that the immortal iron staff Su Yen grasped was definitely not ordinary. This was an unmatched vicious weapon. Even though it was damaged, it suppressed heavenly deities to the point where they couldn't even summon the courage to fight him. Ah! The old divine king who was blocking Zhu Qing faced the sky and laughed loudly. Delightful, delightful, too delightful. In one corner of the battlefield, a great victory was announced. The ancestral war orders had been passed down, and the buried realm clan had won a complete and total victory. Madman Su's ferocious reputation was even greater than before. He was a god of war who killed his way to the top, overlooking the battlefield with disdain. Our race, with this kind of Ingjie, our rise. It was like a shot in the arm, stirring the hearts of many experts of the burial region. They saw more hope now. In the future, Su Yen would definitely be able to compete with the Supremes. That day wouldn't be too far away. Kill him. This of immortals of course, after all, of the two, ancestral dark. Of course, the experts of dark of the other of the dark experts of dark yen. How could they tolerate Su Yan's rampage on the battlefield? Immediately, some of the divine kings wanted to kill their way over and suppress him. However, Yi Lingtian and the others weren't just there to sit around and do nothing. They stood in front of the strongest and blocked off the divine king's experts, forbidding them from getting involved in the internal battle. However, how could they allow Su Yen to reap the harvest? It was as if he was harvesting wheat, slaughtering in all directions. Now, in this battlefield where the tide had turned, heroes had gathered and followed Su Yan's charge. With a peerless general leading the charge, this battle group was brave and unrivaled. They swept through the battlefield, bringing about a reign of terror and causing a great earthquake to erupt on the battlefield. Su Yan's name was too infamous. Who didn't know how terrifying he was? Even the elites of the Ancestral Hall and the Dark Nether race were terrified when they saw him. Even if they tried their best, they wouldn't be able to exert much of their strength. Just as Su Yen was about to unleash his massacre, his expression suddenly changed. He felt as if he was being locked down by a terrifying aura. Even his powerful body felt like it was about to shatter. Bastard! The battlefield trembled as the Divine King's power filled the entire battlefield. Some Divine Kings had sneaked in and evaded the Divine King's blockade. They had entered the battlefield and were targeting Su Yen. It was obvious that the Divine King had just arrived. He had targeted Su Yen the moment he appeared and was ready to hunt him down. Su Yen, run! Dozens of experts were seething with anger. They joined forces and charged toward the area where the explosion was about to erupt. This was the Divine King's killing move. It was about to explode this space and suppress Su Yen. Ah! Su Yan's eyes were wide with anger. His blood-stained hair danced in the wind. Those were his clansmen. He didn't even know their names. In fact, he didn't even know Su Yen. But now, in order to buy some time for Su Yen to retreat, they didn't hesitate and charged toward the Divine King who was secretly attacking Su Yen. Bang! They all exploded. The Divine King's might was unstoppable. It was like an ocean overturning and filling the blood-stained starry sky. It was filled with the power to slay gods and destroy Buddhas. It crushed the starry sky and caused it to shatter into pieces. Bastard, I'll kill you! Su Yan's pupils narrowed. He didn't retreat under the horrified gazes of the people around him. Instead, he charged forward and smashed the Divine King with his immortal iron staff. You're courting death. The Divine King of the Dark Nether race was enraged. He was a dignified Divine King, but he was just an ant in his eyes. How audacious of him to attack him just because of a sex treasure. The Divine King's palm struck down and formed a seal. It was boundlessly powerful and caused the immortal iron staff to vibrate. The web between Su Yan's thumb and forefinger cracked. The immortal iron staff almost left his hand. The Divine King's power was even about to tear Su Yen to pieces. Whoosh whoosh. In that instant everyone focused on Su Yen. Even the Divine King was immersed in the joy of suppressing Su Yen. The shattered starry sky was suddenly shrouded in darkness. The Divine King's bodyguard came out and took out a great Tao immortal pearl. It was as if he had taken out a condensed great Tao universe. It spewed with the light of order and surged with the majestic might of the great Tao. A mighty divine weapon. The Divine King's expression changed drastically. The Divine King's bodyguard came out too suddenly and took out the great Tao immortal pearl. His power was even concentrated on Su Yen. As the price, Su Yan's Divine King armor exploded. He coughed up large mouthfuls of blood and staggered. But the Divine King's fate was even worse. He was temporarily imprisoned by the great Tao Immortal Pearl. The Divine King's bodyguard punched the Divine King of the Dark Underworld race, causing him to howl in pain. His entire back was pierced through, and his abdomen was in excruciating pain. This was a Divine King who had been severely injured. Of course, no one expected that Su Yen would have a Divine King secretly protecting him. Kill him. Skin him alive. The moment the godly monarch was severely injured, furious combat soldiers rushed out from all directions. They had never imagined that the godly monarch would be so thick-skinned as to sneak an attack on Su Yen, a cultivator in the great Tao realm domain. This Divine King was truly pitiful. All his bones were broken, and blood was flowing from his mouth and nose. It was a group attack. With the Divine King's bodyguard holding the line and the great Tao Immortal Pearl, Su Yen had nothing to fear as long as it wasn't a top existence among the Divine King. But what made him sad was the group of experts who had rushed into the Divine King. Su Yen rushed into the battlefield and started fighting with the Divine King, who was struggling on the brink of death. Just like that, the battlefield was destroyed one after another. It was beyond recognition. Some people saw Su Yen remove one of the Divine King's arms. Some saw the Divine King's bodyguard crush one of his thighs. Some saw someone use a battle spear to pierce through the Divine King's chest. In short, this Divine King was too pitiful. He almost cried and was so depressed that he wanted to spit out blood. Why did he take the initiative to sneak attack Su Yen? Now, not only did he lose his life on the battlefield, but someone was drinking his Divine King's precious blood. In the end, this Divine King exploded into a bloody mist. The spectators from afar were in disbelief. They had actually killed a Divine King. It was equivalent to a giant on the battlefield falling. It was shocking. Trash. On the vast battlefield, the smell of blood filled the sky. One Divine King after another emitted killing intent. Zhu Cheng and the others were furious, and the battle became even more intense. They all wanted to rush over and kill Su Yen directly. I really don't know how long this battle will last. Many people murmured. The killing on the battlefield was still increasing, and the number of dead was already hard to count. Many famous experts had fallen in pools of blood. If this kind of battle continued, it would really cause the extinction of races. But some people could see that even if the two peak races destroyed them, they would have to pay the price in blood. What was even more unexpected was that even when the battlefield had entered a state of frenzy, there were still some forces that arrived in succession and rushed into the battlefield. These were the members of the Buried Realm clan, who were now leading their people back to the ancestral planet. The spectators turned pale. This race that was once scattered still possessed a terrifying rallying power. The Ancestral Hall and the Dark Underworld race want to destroy them too much. Their side is also continuously sending large armies into the Milky Way. Many people sighed. The battlefield was expanding, and the number of soldiers fighting was also increasing. There was no doubt that the battlefield would continue to expand for a period of time in the future. It was really hard to say how far it would progress. The number of experts watching the battle continued to increase. Finally, the experts of the peak races arrived. When they saw the battlefield, their scalps went numb. They even trembled and said, "What is the Buried Realm trying to do? Fight to the death? Do they want to re-establish the ancestral court and gather the race's fortune?" They didn't know the importance of the progenitor to the Buried Realm race. And the Buried Realm couldn't afford to lose. If they lost, they would lose the place where they could rise again. Then, they would be scattered once more and enter a vicious cycle. What could the Buried Realm use to rise again? Kill. Day after day, the sea of blood drifted. 3 Divine King had fallen. One could imagine how tragic it was. But the expedition was still going on, and the battle was still going on. Some people were wondering when the Almighty would break free. After all, once the Milky Way was breached, the buried realm race wouldn't be far from extinction. The universe continued to boil. The universe bridge manifested, and the experts of various forces chased after it. They were about to reach the Milky Way. However, after they left, the boundless aura of the chaos ruins that even Deputy Dean Jean Yu was afraid of spread out again. It was like a terrifying leader sitting cross-legged in the chaos ruins, overlooking the universe. For a moment, the people of the nearby star systems were trembling. They felt a chill run down their spines from head to toe. They had a premonition that the wisp of aura was passing through the primal chaos, crossing over vast regions and heading towards the cosmos. What kind of existence is that? It actually makes me feel fear. In ancient cities, famous mountains, great rivers, and secret realms of the universe, some old antiques who had been sleeping for many years walked out. They were all old divine king or half-step almighties who were reaching the end of their lifespans. At this moment, their hearts trembled. They felt that they were being looked down at by a terrifying creature. Chapter 748. The Ancestral Hall and the Dark Nether Race seem to have gone mad. Are they really going against the Burial Region bloodline? I don't believe it at all. In the prosperous cultivation world, there were rumors everywhere. These days, the commotion was too great. All the races in the major star fields were paying close attention to the development of this matter. There were also rumors constantly spreading. It was said that the two pinnacle races had discovered an incredible universe secret realm and were preparing to devour it in one go. Additionally, they would deal with the Burial Region bloodline on the way. Many people believed this rumor. After all, was the Burial Region bloodline really that terrifying? Was it worth the two pinnacle races going to war and even mobilizing troops from the Chaos Ruins? Who knows? It's said that the Ancestral Hall suffered heavy losses. More than a dozen resource secret realms were overturned in the Chaos Ruins. In addition, a top-notch Dao field was breached. The losses are too great. They will definitely be serious. The Burial Region bloodline is also acting like a madman. It seems that the discovery of their ancestral land is a fact. Just wait. It won't be long before news comes. I think the Burial Region bloodline has really come to an end. Although they didn't know what had happened, the situation was quite serious. The Ancestral Hall and the Dark Nether race had mobilized their armies, causing the major star fields to be shaken. There was also a kind of austere aura engulfing the starry sky. People really recognized how terrifying they were. It wasn't just empty talk that the pinnacle races were controlling the universe's situation. In addition, there were also countless experts who hurried over to investigate, searching all the way. However, when they rushed into the battlefield, they heard the battle cries that made their souls tremble. They were terrified from the bottom of their hearts. They didn't dare to go any further. Just the smell of blood from the battlefield alone was enough to make their hair stand on end. How many people had died to emit such a vast smell of blood? It was a scene of a sea of blood. How could such a powerful battlefield be born? Many people took out their space-time secret treasures to observe. Their bodies were emitting cold air. That vast battlefield was filled with mountains of corpses and seas of blood. The sound of killing filled the sky. The conquest of gods and demons splashed the sky with blood. After all, the battlefield was too vast. Even the divine king would feel his hair stand on end. Such a magnificent battlefield was covered in blood. There were piles of corpses everywhere. Many heavily injured figures were struggling in pools of blood, letting out mournful cries. 3 days and 3 nights. The war had already broken out for 3 days and 3 nights. Countless experts had died in battle. Countless soldiers and horses had perished. The entire Milky Way was dyed red with blood. Corpses and bones were scattered everywhere, and a bloody storm was stirred up. But right now they were still fighting and killing each other. It was incomparably intense. In the sky, on the ground, in the starry sky of the universe, densely packed soldiers were fighting. Countless experts were fighting with their lives on the line. One divine king after another. He erupted with a terrifying foundation, and his roar shook the universe. Some experts who had been watching felt that the Burial Realm clan couldn't hold on any longer. As early as yesterday, several more Divine King had come from the two Peak clans. However, what they did not expect was that Su Dalong, Yi Lingtian, and the Divine King, the Blood Lion, had been hiding their strength all this time. When they unleashed their full power, it was enough to suppress the heavens and shake the earth. With the Divine King being slaughtered, the three of them displayed their strongest aura, dominating the heavens, causing people to turn pale and tremble. Even Zhu Cheng was shocked. His old rival, Yi Lingtian, seemed to have turned into a barbaric giant god. His divine power was much more vigorous than before. How could such an outrageous thing happen? He felt that Yi Lingtian was about to accumulate enough foundation to break through the realm of supreme beings. Without a doubt, it was Xiahou who had secretly given the three of them the cosmic liquid, allowing their combat strength to transform. Their potential and foundation had risen to a new level. They had accumulated the foundation of the peerless Divine King, surpassing the past. Unfortunately, Su Yen didn't have much of the cosmic liquid on him. Xiahou had given them all the remaining cosmic liquid, but it wasn't enough. However, it was enough to make them stronger. This cosmic liquid was really no small matter. Su Dalong and the others had also silently refined the cosmic liquid. At the critical moment, they had reversed the battle situation and carried the pillars of their race's frontier. They had used their majestic bodies to block the power of the Divine King of the two pinnacle races, buying time for their rear. This made the Ancestral Hall and the Dark Nether race realize the seriousness of the situation. They speculated that they had grasped some kind of rare immortal treasure, so they had to eradicate the Burial Realm race. They couldn't let them live. Otherwise, if they were allowed to grow, they would definitely become a huge threat in the future. This also caused a sensation in the entire universe. The two major races urgently dispatched their armies and rushed into the Milky Way. They were like dumplings, and a large number of soldiers had already sealed off the surrounding starry skies of the Milky Way. They had also begun to set up various killing formations. Without a doubt, the pinnacle races were ruthless. They didn't care about the cost and wanted to wipe out the Burial Realm race in one fell swoop to prevent future troubles. They can't hold on much longer. When the bloody battle reached the fourth day, the number of expeditions in the Milky Way was rapidly decreasing. After such a long bloody battle, the Tibetan medicine race's losses were too heavy. They had lost more than half of their army of hundreds of thousands. Most of the survivors were seriously injured, and many soldiers were struggling in pools of blood. Many people raised their heads, lying in pools of blood, roaring towards the blood-colored heavens. Their clansmen were all wiped out, but they didn't regret participating in this battle. From start to finish, their clan blood was always surging, roaring. It was like the will of their ancestors, following them in battle. Their defensive line was being pushed back little by little because the Ancestral Hall and the Dark Nether race were constantly sending in fresh troops. How could they withstand such a cruel attack? Even the powerful Su Yen was exhausted. He couldn't even wave his immortal iron staff. His whole body was dyed red with blood, as if he had crawled out from a pile of corpses. Su Yen faced the sky and roared. The stench of blood surged. His body was already riddled with holes, and it was extremely difficult to force out the fragments of killing weapons from his body. Su Yen killed for 4 days and 4 nights. He didn't know how many enemies he had slaughtered, and the number of enemies who had fallen under his feet was uncountable. Even so, even though he was exhausted, his ferocious aura was still so terrifying. He stood in the sea of corpses, intimidating the surrounding enemies so much that they didn't dare to rashly approach Su Yen. Su Yen laughed loudly. He had no regrets even if he died in battle. He chose to stay and fight the enemy together with his clansmen. Su Yen killed to his heart's content. This was a blood-colored demonic god. The spectators who had been paying attention to him all this time felt numb. Ha 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 ha! Yuan and Tensor were also laughing. Even more than 10 young experts from the burial realm were laughing. Among them, there were heavenly gods and deity realm experts. They were fighting side by side and were the strongest batch of young seeds of the burial realm race. They were all laughing. That kind of crazy killing intent. Even the fresh troops who had rushed over didn't dare to look at them. They can't hold on much longer. Those who survived are all seriously injured. Let's kill them all in one go. Thousands of troops gathered, filled with cruel killing intent. They were reorganizing their battle teams and preparing to launch a new round of attack. They wanted to completely break through the solar system's defensive line and kill their way into Earth. And Su Yen and the other young experts were guarding at the forefront, swallowing the starry sky. Immediately, Su Yen gave the order to retreat to Earth. He wanted to borrow the power of the 49 giant pillars to kill even more enemies. They had no way out. They could only fight to the death. Su Yen felt that they hadn't lost yet. As long as no supreme expert came to break the balance of the Milky Way galaxy, they could still continue to fight. Kill! Seeing Su Yen and the others retreating, the allied forces of the two clans were instantly agitated. They charged forward crazily. Block them for me! The descendant of the Blood Lion Divine King, the Little Lion King, roared. With a flick of his sleeve, dozens of blood-colored battleships flew out. Each battleship was set ablaze. Each battleship carried thousands of killing arrays. Dozens of blood-colored battleships rushed toward the hundreds of thousands of troops. All of them were set ablaze, releasing killing intent that strangled a large area. But there were too many enemies. The battleships exploded one after another. But this also bought more time for Su Yen and the others to bring more people back to Earth. People felt that the war in the Milky Way galaxy was coming to an end. The allied forces of the two clans were about to charge toward Earth and occupy this ancient planet. Come if you're not afraid of death. This blue planet glowed. Su Yen stood tall in the sky. His blood-stained hair danced in the wind. At the moment he spat, a vast source of life emerged from the blue planet and penetrated Su Yan's withered body. Like spring bamboo after the rain, Su Yan's declining aura began to recover. He was the supreme expert of Earth's star field. A vague imprint was projected between his eyebrows, gathering the source of Earth's power. It made Su Yen look terrifying. Millions of enemies trembled. Could it be that Su Yen could still fight? Don't be afraid. His body is already riddled with holes. Fighting with his life in such a way is simply courting death. Madman Su has already exhausted himself. If he continues to fight, he'll die immediately. Many people sneered. They had seen through Su Yan's current state. Moreover, they were observing this blue planet with greedy eyes. Everyone could see the value of Earth. Once it was under their control, it would definitely be a terrifying paradise. Kill! Millions of troops galloped toward Su Yen from all directions. Tens of thousands of elite soldiers were charging toward him. However, they were all terrified as they approached Earth. The world had changed. 49 giant pillars soared into the sky, filled with endless ferocious phantoms. This might was too frightening. A huge explosion erupted from within and no one could survive. This killing formation could even cut off the arm of a powerful expert, let alone them. For a moment, the enemies in the rear were so intimidated that they didn't dare to attack rashly. They were incomparably apprehensive of the rear progenitor. They've sealed Earth. We'll take care of them and Earth will be ours. All kinds of sneers came from the edge of the galaxy. It was time to decide the outcome of the battle between the Divine King and the Divine King. A total of 14 Divine Kings had come from the Ancestral Hall and the Dark Nether race. Su Dalong and the others were almost unable to resist. After all, they only had 7 Divine Kings left and they were suffering heavy losses. Dong, dong, dong. However, at this critical juncture, the sound of a bell echoed across the entire bloody battlefield. The sound of the bell became louder and louder. It was accompanied by auspicious phenomena that dispersed the bloody smell in the air. The entire battlefield seemed to have been purified, and the vast world of blood was filled with a monstrous, auspicious glow. The divine king's face turned pale. He looked into the distance and saw an indistinct giant golden bell ringing. This giant bell was like a condensed universe. It rumbled, and the sound seemed to spread through over 100 star domains. Moreover, when the giant bell rang, 3,000 chaotic gods and devils appeared on the bell. They chanted the heavenly music of the great Tao and revolved around the giant bell. This made the universe even more terrifying and magnificent. The Divine King couldn't even breathe under the pressure. Universe Bell. Chapter 749. The universe clock was too famous in the Chaos Ruins. It was not inferior to the two supreme treasures, the immortal binding rope and the divine refining furnace. There were many rumors about this object, but the one that was closest to reality was that the universe clock was forged from an incomplete universe. When it awoke, it was truly like a condensed universe. It gushed out an ancient sea of stars and was surrounded by billions of strands of chaotic energy. Especially on the clock, there were 3,000 images of chaos gods and demons. When the universe clock rang, the 3,000 gods and demons would awaken and chant the great Tao heavenly melody. They would revolve around the universe clock with terrifying power. Dong, dong, dong. The ringing of the bell shook the souls of those who heard it. It exuded an extremely heavy aura, suppressing even god-kings to the point of suffocation. It also dispersed the stench of blood that permeated the vast battlefield. The universe bridge. Then their expressions changed. The appearance of the universe clock was one thing, but the universe bridge also appeared. The golden bridge was like the backbone of the universe, extending from the distant starry sky to here. It's the experts from the Tao Temple. What are they doing here? The Dark Nether race and the Divine King of the Ancestral Hall were uneasy. If it was in the past, they would have warmly welcomed them and received them with the highest ceremony. However, when they were about to join forces against the Burial Realm and were about to take them down, the people from the Tao Temple came. Since the universe clock and the universe bridge appeared, it was enough to show the importance the Tao Temple placed on this place. Soon, they saw a terrifying figure in a golden robe coming from the end of the universe bridge. He was full of supreme majesty. He was like an ancient Tao sovereign walking on the universe bridge with the universe clock above his head. One could imagine how tyrannical and terrifying his aura was. He was like a great figure who controlled the heavens. The conquest of the Milky Way galaxy stopped. The Blood Lion Divine King and the others were also surprised. Why would the Tao Temple send someone here at this time? Moreover, it was a supreme being who came in person. The Tao Temple was an extremely ancient and mysterious force that took root in the Chaos Ruins. It continued to be glorious in one universe epoch after another, but not many families and forces knew about this race. This was because the Tao Temple would only appear at the end of a universe epoch, which was the era when the Chaos Ruins opened. Who was the force that controlled the most resources and secret realms in the Chaos Ruins? There was no doubt that the Tao Palace was a power that had nurtured incredible experts in every epoch of the universe. Even the Dark Nether race and the Ancestral Hall had sent their descendants to cultivate in the Tao Temple. The disciples recruited by the Tao Temple were the best of the best. The weak had no hope of joining the Tao Temple. Deputy Dean Jin Yu, Zhu Qing and the others frowned. The Tao Temple's identity. There was even a group of young men following along. Every single one of them had a powerful aura. They were all rare dragons and phoenixes among men, proud sons of heaven. In the distant world, cries of surprise exploded one after another. That was because there were quite a number of experts who had followed the cosmic bridge here. They were all terrified by the scene of the cosmic bridge descending. That scene really made their hair stand on end. No one would have thought that such a tragic battle would take place here. The soldiers of the ancestral hall and the dark nether race were entrenched in the Milky Way. They were surrounded by mountains of corpses and seas of blood. The newcomers were shocked. Is this the final battle? After a short pause, the place was filled with suffocating fluctuations. The Tao Temple, Su Yan raised his eyebrows. He had heard of this force. Didn't Fairy Zixia come from this mysterious force? But what was this force doing here? Back then, it was Miser Rooster who revealed the origin of Fairy Zixia. But now, this mysterious force had once again surfaced. The commotion was truly shocking. Su Yan's eyes also scanned the young experts beside Dao's sovereign Jin Yu. These people were very powerful and amazing. They were definitely stronger than Kuan Lixue. Any one of them was an extraordinary Yingjie. Fairy Zixia. Su Yan also saw a peerless beauty in a purple dress. She was as beautiful and outstanding as ever. She was filled with a youthful and beautiful temperament. It was easy for people to notice her in the crowd. But when Su Yan saw Yi Si Yun, he was dazzled. Why was Yi Si Yun among them? The scene in front of her had a huge impact on Inisi. She clenched her jade-like hands tightly and suppressed the fluctuations in her heart. When her eyes also looked at the greatly changed blue planet, she finally heaved a sigh of relief. So it's Vice President Jin Yu. Zhu Qing walked up and bowed. I'm Zhu Qing of the Ancestral Hall. May I know why Vice President Jin Yu is here? Jin Yu looked like an immortal, but he had a peerless majesty. He stood in the blood-stained starry sky and scanned the entire battlefield. He frowned and said, "It's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Why do you have to fight like this? You're the one who loses in the end." Hearing this, Zhu Cheng's expression changed slightly. What did he mean? Could it be that Vice Principal Jin Yu wanted to interfere in their battle? Over the years, the Taoist temple had never intervened in the disputes of the major families. They had nothing to do with the realm of burial. Could it be EC? Su Yan thought to himself. Taking advantage of the time when the battle stopped, he quickly absorbed the essence of heaven and earth to recover. Su Yan's injuries were too severe. There were countless scars on his body. He was exhausted to the extreme. The arrival of the Taoist temple also bought Tensor and the others some time to breathe. They all absorbed the essence of heaven and earth to heal their injuries. Vice President Jin Yu also saw the powerful structure of the Milky Way. The two powerhouses working together could only suppress it, but they couldn't completely destroy the structure. This surprised Vice President Jin Yu. Then he said calmly, "I want to be a peacemaker." What? The whole place was in an uproar. The onlookers were shocked. The Taoist temple would never intervene in the disputes of the major families. Now, a big shot from the Taoist temple had jumped out and wanted to resolve the grudge between them. This was unbelievable. Why would the Taoist temple get involved? It clearly had nothing to do with them. Even Yi Lingtian and the others looked as if they had seen a ghost. Their lineage had nothing to do with the Taoist temple. Vice President Jin Yu was making such a big fuss just to resolve the grudge? They really couldn't figure it out. What could the Taoist temple gain by doing this? You are a powerhouse of the Taoist temple. Zhu Qing suppressed the anger in his heart and walked over. He said in a low voice, "You should know the grudge between our clan and the realm of burial. How can this be resolved so easily? Don't worry about this. Your battle isn't in a hurry either." Vice President Jin Yu smiled faintly. "I'm here today to be a peacemaker. Whether this matter succeeds or not, let's not talk about it for now. Before I came, I was asked to take someone away. There shouldn't be a problem, right? A powerhouse and the Taoist temple. This was too big of a deal. The Divine King didn't dare to make a decision. He could only wait for the powerhouse of the clan to speak. Who is Su Yan?" Fairy Zixia walked out with a smile. She was beautiful, and her curvy figure was suffused with auspicious clouds. She had the demeanor of a fairy. Yi Si Yun had been observing the soldiers on Earth, but she couldn't find Su Yan. However, when a person covered in blood and reeking of blood stepped out, Si Yun's face turned pale. She covered her red lips with her jade-like hand, and her heart trembled. Fairy Zixiao was also stunned. She looked at Su Yan with her big eyes. He was like a demon god that had walked out of hell. The reeking of blood was too strong, and his body was covered in wounds. There was almost no place that was unharmed. Su Yan had slaughtered his way through the battlefield for several days and nights. Who knew how many soldiers had died at his hands? Most of his body was covered in the blood of the enemy. Vice President Jin Yu's deep eyes stared at Su Yan. He muttered in his heart. How many enemies did he have to kill to gather such a ferocious, baleful aura? Su Yan, come here. Behind Jin Yu, a young man exuding an oppressive aura walked out. His body was filled with chaotic qi and his figure was extremely shocking. A terrifying heavenly deity aura permeated the air. This was a relatively young heavenly deity. He waved at Su Yan with the demeanor of a peerless expert. A commotion broke out in the surroundings. Su Yan was no ordinary person. He had killed a large number of heavenly deities. It was clear that this young man didn't know how powerful Su Yan was. He didn't pay much attention to Su Yan's beckoning. Su Yan. I know him. Little Lion King said fiercely. He is the disciple of Vice President Jin Yu. His name is He Xingjie, right? He is a member of the Divine King's reserve team. His name is well known in the Chaos Ruins. He is very impressive. Brother, what do you want? Su Yan's voice was a little hoarse. Don't be afraid. He Xingjie stared at Su Yan and said calmly, come here. From now on, we will be brothers of the same sect. Don't worry, no one will hurt you. Brothers of the same sect, the whole place was in an uproar. Countless people let out sounds of disbelief, and even more were jealous. Even Zhu Qing and the others' faces were gloomy. Once a disciple of the Tao Temple entered the Tao Temple, even the ancestral hall would not dare to rashly target them. But now, Vice President Jin Yu was here and wanted to take someone away. And that person was Su Yan. This was something they had never expected. To the ancestral hall and the others, the Tao Hall could take away anyone but Su Yan. Su Yan, are you willing to be Vice President Jin Yu's disciple? Fairy Zixia asked with a smile. Su Yan, come here and greet your master. Vice President Jin Yu was even more direct and said directly. The ancestral hall's faces were gloomy. This, Su Yan was extremely surprised. He said, thank you for your kindness, senior, but my clan is under attack. I can't go with you now. Everyone around was stunned, and they all sucked in a cold breath. Becoming a disciple of the Tao Hall was enough to make a name for himself, let alone becoming a disciple of the Vice Dean. However, Su Yan did not immediately agree. They really did not know what to say. Young man, your courage is commendable. I have high hopes for you. In the future, you will definitely be the eldest brother of the Tao Temple. Vice President Jin Yu stroked his beard. His comment made He Xingjie and the others' faces very dark. No matter how they looked at it, they did not think that Su Yan had the potential. But they could not refute Vice President Jin Yu's words. Then, Vice President Jin Yu laughed and said, since the two of you can't crack the domain pattern here in a short time, why don't you take a break? Anyway, we are not in a hurry. Come and let's have a good talk. Boom. Chapter 750. All the cultivators watching the battle were dumbfounded. They thought that the Ancestral Hall and the Dark Nether clan were paying attention to the two Almighties awakening at the same time. They never thought that they would berate Jin Yu, saying that he wasn't Jin Yu's deputy dean? Everyone was stunned. How could such a ridiculous thing happen? Those were the Cosmic Bridge and the Cosmic Clock. They were definitely the most famous treasures of the Taoist temple. How could they have seen wrongly? Even Zhu Qing wanted to ask if the ancient ancestor was seeing things. The two treasures couldn't be imitations. How could Deputy Jin Yu be a fake? Even Fairy Zixia's face darkened. What did the Ancestral Hall and the Dark Nether clan want to do? They really didn't care about the Taoist temple. They couldn't even take one person away? After all, who would believe such a ridiculous excuse? However, Xingjie faintly realized that even if Deputy Jin Yu reappeared, he wouldn't participate in the dispute between them. At most, he would take away one disciple. Moreover, Jin Yu's evaluation of Su Yan was too high, and he even urged him to become his disciple, had made Xingjie feel that something was wrong. With Golden Feather status, as long as he spread the word, there would be countless geniuses fighting to be his disciple. Although Su Yan's reputation was great, it was not at the level where Jin Yu would personally praise him. Jin Yu had even personally called him the most outstanding senior in the Tao Temple. Could it be? Xingjie was shocked. Deputy Jin Yu was a fake. Could it really be a fake? But the matter of the Universe Bridge and the Universe Clock couldn't be explained clearly. Why? Don't you want to give me face, Jin Yu? Deputy Jin Yu said angrily. The Taoist temple wants to take Su Yan away. I want to take him as my disciple. Can't you agree to such a small request? Do you want to start a war with the Taoist temple? His words were suffocating. The words Taoist temple shook the world. After all, the Taoist temple had been glorious and prosperous for a long time. Its status was so high that the other clans didn't want to provoke it. Buzz! However, the pupils of the two Almighties suddenly blazed like a burning black hole in the universe, spewing out all kinds of laws of the universe, projecting light that shone on the body of Vice President Jin Yu. At this moment everyone was stunned. Everyone was stunned. Even Su Yan staggered and almost fell to the ground. He really did not know what to say. Gratitude gushed out from his heart. With a group of brothers who had gone through life and death together, he felt that the world was so beautiful. F***ck. Many people rubbed their eyes, thinking that they were seeing things. Because under the illumination of the heaven's eye, how was this still the mighty Tao sovereign golden feather? It was clearly a chicken A, and P. They stopped fighting because of this and even considered the consequences of going to war with the Taoist temple. Zhu Qing also made many predictions about the consequences of provoking the Taoist temple. But they didn't expect that a chicken would be negotiating with them. King Big Rooster. That kind of feeling made them want to die. Many of the powerhouses that followed the Universe Bridge wanted to cry. The Tao Master Golden Feather that they had chased with such fanaticism and respect was actually a silver rooster's illusion. What kind of situation was this? How could they be fooled like this? Who are you? Tell me. Xingjie was so angry that his face and neck turned red. Where did his master, Deputy Jin Yu, go? How did he become a stingy rooster? The whole place was in an uproar. How could such a ridiculous thing happen? Even a half-step Almighty couldn't see through the stingy rooster's disguise. He had almost succeeded. They all thought that the Taoist temple was going to intervene in the feud between the two sides. Yuan and Tensor didn't know what to say. Wasn't this the stingy rooster who had been missing for many years? How did he suddenly become like this? Yun tried hard to suppress the urge to kill. Her face darkened. How could it be him? Yun didn't know the stingy rooster before, but she knew him very well. The stingy rooster was taken away by Deputy Jin Yu from the Divine Mountain Range. At that time, Yun had already been valued by Deputy Jin Yu and was accepted as a disciple. Fairy Zixia was very curious about what had happened. She had met this rooster before, and it was with Su Yan. But now it had come with the Universe Clock and the Universe Bridge. No matter how capable the stingy rooster was, it couldn't have stolen the Universe Clock and the Universe Bridge. It was impossible for it to steal the Cosmic Clock and the Cosmic Bridge, unless it had an unfathomable relationship with the Taoist temple and borrowed the two treasures. To be able to steal the two treasures from the Taoist temple, it was obvious that this stingy rooster's identity and origin must be extraordinary. Motherf***Kerr. Seeing that the matter had been exposed, the stingy rooster quickly fled and rushed to earth. At the same time, he cackled. "Kid, am I good enough? I've brought 2 treasures to help you." Ah! The blood lion divine king and the others wanted to laugh. It was really too good. They didn't know where this guy came from, but he had such a deep relationship with the Taoist temple that he could borrow 2 treasures. Although the stingy rooster didn't manage to intimidate the mighty figures, it bought Su Yen and the others some time to breathe. Using this time, Su Yen forced out all kinds of weapon fragments from his body, relieving the pain of his physical body. The little Lion King also took out the sacred medicine that the Blood Lion mercenary group had treasured for many years and gave it to his brothers to share so that they could recover from their injuries as soon as possible. Hey, hey, hey! Fairy Xia and the others were so angry that they stomped their feet. The stingy rooster had run away and left them in the starry sky. What kind of situation was this? All of you, stay at the front and charge. The stingy rooster had the demeanor of a king as he ordered them to stay at the front. He Xingjie and the others' faces darkened. He wanted them to stay at the front? What did this have to do with them? Why did you go to the Taoist temple? Su Yen really didn't understand. You guys are really good. You left me behind and ran away. I'm ashamed that I still risked my life to save you guys. The stingy rooster was angry at the thought of this. Back then, he was really scared. When he woke up from his deep sleep, he saw the demonic fog covering the whole world. The stingy rooster thought that he couldn't keep his life and hid in the Divine Spirit Mountain in fear. He was really afraid that he would die here. It just so happened that all the major tribes joined forces to seal the Divine Spirit Mountain. The ones in charge back then weren't the ancestral halls, but a big shot from the Taoist temple who gathered all the forces and joined forces to seal the Divine Spirit Mountain. The stingy rooster had no choice but to stand up and go to the Taoist temple. There were many things that happened, but the stingy rooster didn't have time to explain. He said in an urgent voice, "We're in big trouble." On the way here, the Universal Bridge sensed that many strong figures are rushing here. Even many old monsters have appeared in the Chaos Ruins. Really? Little Lion King's expression changed. He stared at the universal clock floating above the stingy rooster's head and said, "I say, brother, is this universal clock real? How about letting me take a look? Also, that universal bridge, can it really cross to any place in the universe?" Go away, go away. Children shouldn't interrupt when adults are talking. The stingy rooster reprimanded arrogantly. He had a pair of bald silver wings on his back and looked like a peerless expert. Little Lion King's mouth twitched, but he didn't dare to talk back. After all, the stingy rooster's identity was too mysterious. He could directly borrow the universal clock and universal bridge. You mean these people are coming for the back progenitor and not for my race in the burial realm? Su Yan's expression was serious. Su Dalong and the others also separated their divine senses to communicate with the stingy rooster. They knew the seriousness of the matter because many terrifying old monsters were rushing towards the Milky Way galaxy. The back progenitor. Xiaoho and the others frowned. Regarding the secret of the back progenitor, only the old leader knew. But now the old leader wasn't here at all, and they didn't know whether he was dead or alive. They were extremely anxious. If these people really came, they wouldn't be able to defend Earth. Would they really be forced to retreat? The stingy rooster saw a secret in the Dao Palace's scripture pavilion. The race in the burial realm controlled an ancient planet with life. It was written that if they obtained it, they would also obtain the entire world. This secret was a bit ridiculous. Obtaining an ancient planet with life was equivalent to obtaining the entire world? The stingy rooster continued to read the ancient books following the clues. He didn't find any more clues related to this ancient planet with life. He suspected that some of the contents had been erased, but there must be some forces in the world that knew some secrets about the back progenitor. A group of people surrounded the stingy rooster and asked, But the stingy rooster shook his head and said, "Don't ask about this now. The most important thing now is to retreat. I estimate that this place will become the most dangerous place in the universe. It's definitely countless times more dangerous than the godly mountain range. We should retreat immediately." Xiahou and the others clenched their fists. De Li and the others clenched their fists. They didn't have the qualifications to give this order, nor did they dare to give it. They had lost their first ancestral land in the past. Were they going to lose their second ancestral land now? The Blood Lion Divine King and the others breathed heavily. If a group of old monsters from the Chaos Ruins really came out to attack Earth, then the consequences would be severe. They wouldn't be able to stop them at all. Boom! After a brief pause on the battlefield, the terrifying aura of the battle rumbled and exploded. The starry sky in the distance trembled. A powerful aura bloomed, and blood essence surged. This was definitely the arrival of a terrifying leader, rushing towards the Milky Way. Right now, he was definitely very far away from the Milky Way galaxy. However, just by relying on his own power, he was able to affect the Milky Way galaxy. Because he was using the Ancestral Palace's mother formation, waves of terrifying pressure were transmitted over. There was also a cold and cruel voice that followed, "Destroy the burial region's bloodline first." The Ancestral Palace also sensed that other forces wanted to join in and get a share of the loot. For this reason, the powerful beings of the Ancestral Palace, who had been sleeping for ages, had come out. They were peerlessly terrifying and filled with world-shocking killing intent. They wanted to eliminate the Burial Realm race on the premise of contending for the progenitor's position. The third powerful being on Earth, many people were trembling. The third powerful being had arrived. Who could stop a powerful being? No matter how strong a half-step powerful being was, they were ultimately not as legendary as a powerful being. However, just as the Ancestral Palace's mother formation was about to send a terrifying existence across the universe to the Milky Way, the entire Earth was glowing, and the entire Milky Way was overflowing with resplendent light. Roar! Everyone was hissing and roaring towards the sky. That was because their ancestral blood couldn't help but boil and burn. For a moment, it was as if a boundless sea of anger had awakened. They lined up together, rumbling and surging with terrifying radiance. The resonance of the ancestral blood seemed to be announcing the return of a person. The old leader's aura. Xiahou and the others cried out excitedly. This was a familiar aura. The old leader's aura was being released. It was even more terrifying and exuberant than a star domain. It was too blazing and caused the ancestral blood in their bodies to boil. Boom! That loud sound seemed to have floated over from the long river of time. It affected the third powerful being of the Milky Way, and even his aura began to distort and explode. The Overlord of a generation who had swallowed the universe had returned. In the end, he passed through the great primal chaos and headed towards the Ancestral Palace's ancestral land. That was a supreme Overlord of a generation. With a loud roar, the sea of stars exploded and the universe shattered. Vast amounts of essence blood drowned out one star domain after another. Then, they converged and charged towards the Ancestral Palace's ancestral land with boundless might. It was as if they wanted to pierce through the Ancestral Palace's ancestral court and cause their ancestral land to bleed for eternity. Chapter 751. The Milky Way, which was filled with mountains of corpses and seas of blood, was instantly submerged by that peerless aura. The entire Milky Way was overflowing with brilliance, illuminating a corner of the universe. Boundless radiance radiated out, as if a blurry immortal domain had opened. The light that erupted was so dazzling that it made people's eyes bleed. Boom! In the ancient Milky Way, it was as if billions of tsunamis had gathered together and roared. It was also as if millions of true dragons had come out of their cages. Essence blood flooded the vast starry sky, releasing an aura that was even more turbulent and heaven-defying than a supreme immortal furnace. Moreover, in the short period of light, the demons and devils danced wildly in the Milky Way, illuminating the heavens and earth. It was as if there were many supreme war gods who had crossed over from the ancient river of time, standing between the heaven and earth, their backs propping up the heavens. How imposing and magnificent was this! A great change had occurred in the Milky Way galaxy. All kinds of gods and demons had merged into one, evolving into a terrifying cosmic torrent. The momentum of all races surged violently and overflowed, engulfing the boundless universe. At this moment, one peak race after another, one after another, the most powerful ancient planets with life forms appeared. They all sensed something. What kind of scene was this? The entire universe seemed to have been struck, shocked by the aura from the direction of the Milky Way. All the old antiques in seclusion came out one after another, their faces pale because this was the momentum of the various races, the cosmic torrent. It was as if a new giant had been born, standing in a corner of the universe, overlooking the common people and ruling the world. The momentum of the various races wants to change the structure of the universe. The old antiques of the peak races were all moved. They came out of seclusion and said in astonishment, "What kind of major event has happened recently? What kind of race has risen up? It actually caused such a terrifying cosmic torrent. What kind of leading experts have come out?" All the peak races were shaken because this cosmic torrent was too tyrannical. It came from the Milky Way, like a giant dragon that shattered the starry sky with a roar, crossing the universe as if it was the ruler of the universe. What was this? This was the momentum of the various races, an unchangeable structure, an irreversible torrent, majestically engulfing the entire universe. What was this? This was the power of the bloodline of the Zhongyu clan, the power of their ancestral blood. It was as if they had returned to ancient times, to the time when the Zhongyu clan ruled the world. The second ancestral land resonated with the bloodline of the Burial Region clan. With the aura led by the old leader, the second ancestral land moved towards glory and prosperity. It was the birth of a universe swallowing the universe. It represented the birth of a new clan. The power of these clans. The experts from the ancestral hall and the dark underworld race were trembling. At this moment, the burial realm race was too tyrannical. They looked down on the heavens and looked down on the world with disdain. It was as if they had become one with the entire Milky Way galaxy, turning into a vast cosmic torrent that flowed through the cosmos. They wanted to change the structure of the universe. Even the Divine King was trembling in the face of such an aura. That was because this flood was simply too powerful. It was boundless and majestic. Even the two almighty experts who had collided with the Milky Way galaxy were sent flying in a short period of time, coughing out large mouthfuls of blood. Even the almighty experts had lost their composure and were enraged. This was a huge variable. The leader of the burial realm race was still alive. Even in the second ancestral land, they relied on the layout domain here to unleash the glory of the burial realm race, creating a boundless and terrifying structure. This was also a rather cruel reality. Two almighty experts weren't enough to conquer the Milky Way galaxy. Now, the Milky Way galaxy was powerful enough to make the people of the world suffocate and tremble. Everyone in the universe seemed to see an enormous silver dragon crowding the heavens. It traversed the heavens and looked down on all living things. What kind of existence was born to lead the clan to glory? The great starfields of the universe were in an uproar. An extremely terrifying chaotic situation was born. An unforeseen change erupted in the universe, followed by waves of fluctuations that caused all living things to prostrate themselves. It's him. At that time, the aura from the primal chaos ruins that wanted to cross over had been captured by many old monsters. Now, their faces turned pale. That aura really crossed over from the primal chaos. It was as if a supreme overlord had returned, his roar shaking the rivers and mountains. He was the leader of the clans, the old leader of the clans. that tall and majestic figure, that enormous backbone that supported the heavens, carried the hope of the burial realm race's rise. He carried the clan's glory. Now, the old leader had arrived. He appeared with a tyrannical attitude. Who is that? So terrifying. The boundless starry sky rose and fell, shaking. Many experts from the ancient life stars felt fear and reverence from the bottom of their hearts because they saw a terrifying figure walk out from the primal chaos. It was like a peerless war god that had slaughtered his way down from the immortal domain. When his feet touched the ground and his back supported the heavens, the world darkened. A great earthquake also erupted in the starry sky. Several starfields were shaking. This was the commotion caused by his appearance. His feet stepped on the universe's desolate wilderness, stepping on the universe's starfields. He was majestic and imposing, overbearing in the 9 heavens and 10 earths. The aura he emitted was suffocating. Even the divine king would tremble if he came. That figure was extremely terrifying. His hair danced in the wind as his aura swallowed a great region. His matchless blood essence was enough to cover the ancient starry sky and drown a peak starfield. He was like an immemorial devil star. Just the terrifying aura that spread out from his body was enough to shake an extremely grand starfield. Star rivers collapsed one after another, and the ancient life stars walked towards the center. No! This grand region was the ancestral region of the ancestral hall. It was vast and vast, flourishing and prosperous. However, the entire ancestral region was shaking. The vast region was trembling. What was that? That was boundless bloody light splashing out. Following the arrival of a single person, the entire ancestral region seemed like it was going to explode. Countless creatures were soaked in blood. Large amounts of resources and secret realms were blasted into ashes and fragments. It's the ancestral region. Look, the ancestral hall is being attacked again. Heavens, a single person is suppressing the ancestral region. Is he going to destroy the entire ancestral region and massacre millions and millions of creatures? There were heavenly deities whose voices were trembling. That was the ancestral hall, a peak race that claimed to be number 2 among the cosmos' 10 peak races. However, no other race dared to claim to be number 1. Now, it was facing the misfortune of being attacked. An invincible overlord has appeared. Is he going to destroy the ancestral region? Someone is punching the ancestral hall. Heavens, who is this crazy? Is it an invincible war god who has lived through the ages? The surrounding dozens of starfields trembled. They saw the ancestral region crying out in grief. This grand starfield couldn't suppress the aura of the old leader. He was an unmatched overlord whose body was unknown how many tens of thousands of zhang tall. In the years of travel, suns exploded one after another, expanses of the starry skies were destroyed. The ancestral region was truly going to collapse. It swayed violently and trembled with rustling sounds. The moment the old leader's enormous arms unfolded, the entire ancestral region was going to be torn in two. This was only a short period of time, yet it led to a terrifying disaster. Boundless rain of blood scattered down. The entire starry sky was dyed red. Even gods and devils had to kneel down. Revive the foundation, stop him. The heavenly deities were scared out of their wits. In less than a breath of time, this unmatched overlord was going to slaughter his way into the ancestral hall and tear the entire ancestral hall to pieces. He was even going to forcefully slaughter his way into the ancestral hall. Honglong. After a short period of light, the ancestral region burned with millions and millions of layers of radiance. A total of 100,000 great killing formations were activated. The amount of spray was world-shocking, even more ferocious than that of a great expert. The entire ancestral region's essence energy was temporarily dried up. 100,000 great killing formations were ignited. This was just too spectacular. That type of unmatched foundation that could slaughter gods and exterminate Buddhas, even stopping a great expert. It filled the heaven and earth, drowning out the old leader's aura. Was this going to bury a great expert? Even such an earth-shattering storm of divine power could only be maintained for less than a breath. Suddenly, 100,000 great killing formations swayed, the endless murderous aura trembling. This was a scene that made one's soul tremble. That terrifying figure was breathing, and with each breath, the universe would flicker. Chaotic light of order that was even more magnificent than the sea of stars gushed out from his mouth and nose. Roar. In the end, he released a great roar. The heavens seemed to be weeping blood, the universe seemed to have reached a critical point. Boundless might, tyrannical energy, exceptional sharpness suppressed the boundless universe. He defied the heavens, wishing to stand at the peak of the universe and look down on the entire universe. Pung pung pung. 100,000 great killing formations instantly exploded. The world was dark red, a drifting rain of blood pouring down. Countless creatures died miserably, exploding into bloody light, body and soul wiped out. A sea of blood flowed within the great killing formations. Only heaven knew just how many people had died. In short, 100,000 great killing formations exploded, releasing a berserk and unrivaled aura. It slaughtered in all directions, crushing all life in the universe towards the end, shattering under great fear. Everyone was scared silly. What kind of matchless ferocious might was this? What kind of tyrannical style was this? This was an unrivaled overlord who looked down on the entire star field. Wherever he went, he could easily shatter ancient stars with a single roar. Fist ancestral palace. Awaken the foundation for me, stop him, you must not let him slaughter his way in. Countless old antiques from the ancestral palace walked out from the space-time hole. Even under the great calamity, they didn't lose their rationality. The ancestral palace's foundation was extremely heaven-defying. It was truly awakening endless light of order, as if more than 10 great experts were awakening at the same time. At this moment, the ancestral realm was awakened to the extreme, shaking the surrounding 100 starry domains. Its might spread through half the universe. This was the ancestral palace's supreme foundation, the source of power left behind by the past great experts. Once it erupted, it could trap and kill a great expert. But how could the old chief be immortal? It was as if he had pushed the stars of the heavens over. He reached out with his hand, incomparably large. His palm seemed to contain an ancient universe, emitting a power capable of burying 10,000 worlds, enveloping the entire ancestral realm. Burial realm. It was a secret technique with unparalleled ferocity. It was as if the graveyard realm had been temporarily buried. Under the influence of this secret technique, even the order of the graveyard realm was concealed. Although it was only suppressed for a few breaths of time, it was enough for the old chief to destroy the entire ancestral realm. More and more ancient stars exploded. That demonic aura was getting closer and closer to the ancestral palace. Once he truly slaughtered his way here, he would be able to pierce through the entire ancestral palace, causing this glorious influence to decline. Strike out the heaven-refining furnace for me. The great figures of the ancestral palace panicked. This was a supreme demon lord descending into the world. No matter what material it wouldn't be able to block his path of slaughter. Chapter 752. What a terrifying energy fluctuation. Why do I feel like something big is happening in the ancestral domain? It's really the ancestral domain. Look, the ancestral domain seems to be collapsing. The entire cultivation world was shocked. The divine kings of the various aristocratic families turned pale and felt their scalps go numb. They couldn't believe that the source was the ancestral domain. In these short 10 breaths of time, they felt as long as a century. Through various space-time treasures, they were able to see what was happening in the ancestral domain. It was a scene that would make even godly kings tremble in fear. How grand was the ancestral domain? It was the home of the ancestral hall, the second most powerful race in the universe, and a colossal power that dared to claim to be the most powerful. But now the ancestral domain was trembling. A supreme overlord had killed his way in and engulfed the entire domain. His unparalleled blood essence continued to spread, collapsing 100,000 great killing formations and intimidating all races. They didn't even have time to think about who would use such cruel methods against the ancestral hall. They saw the ancestral domain emitting all kinds of terrifying light of order. Even the ancient almighty figure was suppressed by a palm. Burial realm. The group of demon deities of the demon domain trembled. They roared in a low voice, "It's the almighty of the burial realm race." Heavens, the burial realm race actually has such a terrifying almighty. This kind of invincible overlord is still alive. Their race really has a powerful foundation. Among them, the divine king of the Pling race had an extremely unsightly expression. There was even a trace of lingering fear and panic in his heart. Without a doubt, the old leader of the burial realm race had come to settle the score. Their race also had almighty experts and supreme overlords who dominated the world. Now that they had come out in anger, they must be standing up for the burial realm race. This was a bloody scene enough to shock all races. It shocked the entire world. At first, they suspected that the ancestral hall had provoked an unfathomable old monster. But now, it seemed that the old leader of the burial realm race had appeared. He looked down on the common people, and could be called an archaic demonic mountain that dominated the world. The demon domain was in a panic. Back then, the demon domain's Ingjie had targeted Su Yen in many ways because of the banners of demons. It was even worth mentioning that the traces of the banners of demons had appeared once again. The demon domain had already organized a large group of experts to plot against the banners of demons, but now, they saw the supreme overlord of the burial realm race killing the ancestral domain. Either he was crazy or the old leader had shocking confidence. Today, the old leader, Baju, had made his move and caused endless disasters. Countless creatures had died. Now that the burial world's secret technique was released, the old leader pushed forth his own invincible combat strength, one hand covering the heavens. The old leader was domineering to the extreme. He was like a divine king that could split the sky. His roar shook the sea of stars and scattered the souls of the ancestral hall experts. He let out a terrifying voice, bullying the masses, "I will slaughter your entire ancestral domain." The grudges accumulated over a long period of time, the cruelty and bloodshed of the endless years, made the old leader release the craziest battle strength and the craziest will. A roar could shatter rivers and mountains. He attacked without caring about the consequences. He wanted the ancestral hall to remember this bloody lesson. "Strike out the heavenly refining furnace for me." When this supreme overlord was about to punch the ancestral hall, the ancestral domain's strongest universe released billions of layers of red immortal light that illuminated the sea of stars. This was definitely the most terrifying state of the heavenly refining furnace. It was as if an immortal supreme that had been slumbering for a long time was awakening. An ancient and mysterious aura spread out. This was the power of the heavenly refining furnace. It emitted an unrivaled divine power that could refine the universe. The furnace directly flew out from the ancestral hall. Its body rapidly enlarged and became immeasurably grand. Moreover, it surged with immortal splendor, causing the vast starry sky to explode and form a terrifying black hole. The supreme treasure had awakened. The heavenly refining furnace was the ancestral hall's sex-stabilizing weapon and was known as one of the most powerful weapons in the universe. When this immortal weapon was awakened to the extreme, just a bit of its aura was enough to refine the divine king to death. Just like that, the heavenly refining furnace charged towards the supreme overlord who had killed his way into the ancestral hall. This was an indescribable collision. It was as if two universes had collided and even produced a dazzling scene of a big explosion. The light of destruction was so dazzling that it made people's eyes bleed. Even the heavenly deities couldn't open their eyes. Only the divine king could clearly see the scene of the confrontation. Boom! The old leader and the heavenly refining furnace clashed together. A jet-black crack appeared in the universe. It was a soul-stirring sight. It was as if the heaven and earth had been severed and split into two. The divine king sucked in a cold breath of air. This was too frightening. A large crack had appeared in the universe. This was the collapse of the heavens and the collapse of this part of the universe, resulting in an enormous disaster. What a terrifying battle! Is it a battle between experts who are close to reaching the heavens? There were countless secret realms in the boundless cosmos. Many slumbering old antiques had awakened within the danger zones and life-forbidden zones. They were all terrified. The confrontation that had erupted from the ancestral region made them all tremble with fear. They felt as if they had blasted apart a part of the universe. There were even unbelievably ancient characters who slowly woke up from the primal chaos and slept through the ages. Some terrifying existences awakened and opened their eyes that were even larger than ancient stars. They hid within the primal chaos and overlooked the entire cosmos, staring at the battlefield. For a moment, the entire cosmos was shaken. Gods and devils danced about chaotically. Their auras were terrifying to the extreme. All of them were awakened by this battle. There were powerful old antiques who warned their sex that the race of the burial region couldn't be provoked. That's a supreme treasure that has been activated. The heavenly refining furnace has been struck out. Can it stop this demon lord? What I'm curious about is who attacked the ancestral palace back then. It shouldn't be the leader of the burial region. I reckon it's some other power that is targeting the ancestral palace's Zhu Tian. Immediately after, the entire place was in an uproar. They all saw the heavenly refining furnace cave in from the old leader's fist. This heavenly furnace was about to deform. What kind of physical body was this? To be able to face a supreme treasure head-on and even cause it to cave in, it was truly unbelievable. Of course, the heavenly refining furnace was extremely unordinary. It recovered on its own, gushing with scarlet multicolored light. The sunken area immediately recovered to its perfect state. For an immortal weapon like this, it was almost impossible for it to be destroyed. However, the heavenly refining furnace wasn't controlled by a supreme expert. Even if it could recover on its own, it definitely wouldn't be like a supreme expert who could restore the heavenly refining furnace to its perfect state. Even if it had recovered, the old leader had long prepared a second move. This supreme overlord whose aura swallowed the starry domain was destined to shock the world again. A reign of terror was about to be set off. Kill! He roared loudly. Crazy fighting strength surged continuously. His supreme foundation burned fiercely. His battle intent was too crazy and terrifying. Even if it was a demon lord whose roar could shatter 10,000 realms, he would overturn the entire world and blast the ancestral region apart with a single fist. It was unimaginable. Just how savage was the old leader's conviction? He brandished his fists, causing the world to tremble. The heavenly refining furnace began to shake violently. The furnace's body caved in once again, and even a world-shocking power penetrated through. No! Several divine king were terrified. They were the controllers of the heavenly refining furnace, but now, the old leader's peerless power had penetrated the furnace's defenses and was coming for them. The divine king was truly cold from head to toe. He trembled as he let out miserable cries. They simply couldn't survive. The old leader's shockwave of power shattered the divine king's body and exploded it into a bloody mist. The divine king had been killed, and the old leader's third fist arrived. The heavenly refining furnace shook even more fiercely, and a power capable of exterminating all life covered the area once again. The experts of the ancestral hall who had brought out the heavenly refining furnace were all blasted apart. Several divine king were killed, even through the heavenly refining furnace. This caused them to panic and their hearts to tremble. Their hearts were filled with fear, and they wanted nothing more than to turn tail and run. They didn't want to stay in the ancestral region ever again. Boom! But at this time, the ancestral region's greatest background that had been suppressed by the burial realm's secret technique became increasingly vast and turbulent. It was as if the ancestral hall's supreme elders had returned from ancient times, bringing with them the aura of time. Without a doubt, the burial realm wouldn't be able to trap the ancestral hall's background for much longer. They would soon fully recover and push the ancestral region to its strongest state, evolving a world of order that could seal off the heavens and earth. Boom! At this moment, just as the ancestral hall was about to break through the earth, the old leader's hair wildly danced in the wind. He was still as tyrannical and peerless as before. With a single fist, he finally blasted away the heavenly refining furnace. His palm also reached out towards the ancestral hall's miniature universe. He wanted to take advantage of the moment when the ancestral hall's background erupted to smash apart the ancestral hall's gates. This palm was boundless and could be called a universe within a palm. It emitted the light of apocalyptic calamity as it pressed forward. It seemed light and slow, but in truth, it pushed through the boundless starry skies and was in the process of pushing. The ancestral hall's gates trembled. This was because the ancestral hall's strongest secret realm had a terrifying defensive power. Even someone as strong as the old leader had to erupt with his greatest strength to attack. Gotcha! This gate finally began to crack apart. It couldn't resist the old leader's aura. This gate seemed to carry the strength of 3,000 gods and demons, but in front of this unsurpassed overlord, it still began to tremble and crack apart. The ancestral hall's gates have been broken through. The spectating experts of various races trembled. This was the ancestral hall's gates, but now it was blasted apart by the old leader's palm. It was even to the extent that the ancestral region's background was about to fully recover, but the old leader's strength finally began to penetrate into the ancestral hall. Even though this was only a corner of the miniature universe, it was still spectacular and glorious enough. Heaven and earth essence energy was so rich that it couldn't be dispersed. All sorts of Tao palaces and immortal palaces were located within spiritual mountains and great rivers. The miniature universe was filled with outstanding heroes and could be called a rare treasure land. It was also an unimaginable Tao rite, a place where the ancestral hall's great Tao crystallized from one era to the next. It was also where the core clansmen of the ancestral hall gathered. Just the various rare ancient medicines that were raised here were enough to shock the world. There were even many Tao palaces suspended above the 9 heavens. These were definitely the cultivation palaces of great expert. They surged with auspicious multicolored light and released endless great Tao light. The entire miniature universe spanned millions and millions of li, but because of the old leader's arrival, the vast great region began to tremble. Blood light blossomed and the world was dyed dark red. It was as if a great destruction was about to take place. After a brief moment of radiance, many ancient experts that were slumbering in the miniature universe awakened. However, after coming out of seclusion, they began to tremble. They felt as if a terrifying leader was looking down on them. His aura was incomparably terrifying. This was the killing intent that originated from the old leader. It made the ancestral hall's miniature universe tremble. Large cracks began to appear on the ground. If this unsurpassed overlord truly slaughtered his way in, the consequences of the ancestral hall would be incalculable. He's here. This devil king came from the infernal realm. The clansmen inside were terrified. The entire miniature universe was thrown into chaos. Many people were scared witless and frantically fled. But where could they flee to? The miniature universe began to tremble because of the old leader's aura. Honglong. Endless killing intent surged forth. It was as if hundreds of thousands of vicious blood-colored dragons had drilled into this extremely sacred Tao rite, pulling along a world-destroying blood-colored hurricane. Tens of thousands of mountains exploded and Tao palaces sank. From the outside to the inside, the miniature universe was about to be swept away by the old leader. Ah! Smoke and dust filled the sky. Earth and rocks flew into the sky. They were dyed in bloodlight. Countless core clansmen of the ancestral hall exploded into a bloody mist. What made them despair was that the unsurpassed Overlord's aura rushed inwards. It carried with it a fluctuation that made their bodies feel as if they were about to split apart. It made the Tao palaces of great experts in the sky sink, smashing the ground into pieces.